close your eyes and take a deep, peaceful breath. Tonight, we journey to a faraway kingdom where moonlight shimmers on silver towers and secrets sleep beneath the royal palace walls. There once was a kind and graceful queen, a wise and weary king, and a mysterious jadugar, a sorcerer whose magic could bring dreams to life or turn them into shadows. In this world of stars and whispers, every spell carries a heartbeat, every dream hides a truth, and every soul longs for peace. So, lay back, let your mind drift like clouds in the midnight sky, and listen as the story unfolds, a story of love, mystery, and magic woven softly for your dreams tonight. The orb pulsed softly, and images swirled within it. A young woman laughing beneath the forest trees, her hands glowing faintly as she touched a wounded deer and healed it. She saw her younger self standing beside a cloaked man, Arvion, teaching her how to feel the rhythm of magic in the earth. Amara's breath caught. I was a seeker. Yes, said the Jadugar. You were one of the last of the old ones, those who carried light within their hearts, not their crowns. You had the gift, Amara, until you chose the throne. Her voice trembled. I chose love, not power. The orb dimmed for a moment, as if sighing. Love and power in time always find themselves at war. Amara shook her head. No, I won't believe that. But even as she spoke, she felt a faint unease, because the orb's light flickered again, revealing a brief shadow, a throne, empty and cracked, surrounded by flames. Arvion, she whispered. What does this mean? Something is coming, the voice said. Something older than kings, older than crowns. The balance of light is shifting, and you, Amara, you are its key. Before she could ask more, the light dimmed. The orb grew still, far beyond the palace walls. In the dark forest of Marwen, the Jadugar Arvion sat beside a still pool. His reflection shimmered upon the water, and within it, he could see the queen's face fading. He closed his eyes, the faint ache of memory pressing in his chest. So it begins again, he murmured. The queen has touched the orb, and the light has awoken. If she remembers what she is, the kingdom will change forever. He rose slowly, his long robe brushing the forest floor. Around him, the trees bowed slightly, their leaves glowing faintly, for the forest knew him and feared him, yet loved him still. He lifted his hand, tracing a circle in the air. From that circle, a vision appeared. The palace of Aloria, glowing like a jewel beneath the stars, and within it, the king and queen standing side by side, though a faint shadow crept between them. Arvion frowned. He does not understand what she carries. He will not let her see. The moonlight deepened, and a soft voice whispered from the darkness behind him. Do you still love her? Arvion turned slightly. It was a spirit, a shape of light and mist, feminine, with eyes that glowed like moon water. She was the only one who saw the real me, Arvion said softly, and I the real her, but love now would be a curse. I cannot claim what belongs to destiny. The spirit drifted closer. Then why awaken her? He looked up at the stars, and his voice was almost a whisper, because the stars are fading, and she is the only one who can make them shine again. Back in the palace, the king stood by his study window. He, too, had been unable to sleep. He had noticed the queen's restlessness, the quiet distance in her eyes. It wasn't anger or sadness. It was something deeper, something hidden. "Your Majesty," said General Heron softly, entering the room. "The guards report strange lights in the northern sky last night. They say it looked like magic." The king turned sharply. "Magic is forbidden in this kingdom." "Yes, my lord." "But this was not human." Rayan frowned, his jaw tightening. "Send scouts to the forest of Marwen. Search every shadow, every whisper of smoke. If the old Jadugar lives, I will find him." That evening, Queen Amara walked once again into the garden. The silver lilies glowed softly under the moonlight, and the air was filled with the scent of rain and earth. She knelt beside the fountain and touched the cool water, closing her eyes, and then faintly, she heard it again. The whisper, this time, not from the orb, but from the air itself. "Amara," her heart trembled. "Arvion?" The voice came softer now, as though from a dream. "They will come for me. The king feels my shadow, but I did not return to bring harm." "Then why?" she whispered. "To save what's left of the light. The orb will soon call for its keeper, and that keeper is you." "But the king's love is true," the voice said gently. "But even true love cannot stop fate." The wind rustled softly through the garden trees. The stars flickered faintly above, like candles in a great cathedral of night. And somewhere deep inside, Amara understood that her life, her marriage, her throne, her peace, was standing upon the edge of something vast and unseen. The forest called to her now. The orb whispered in her dreams, and the Jadugar waited, not as an enemy, but as the shadow of her forgotten self. That night, as the king slept beside her, the queen whispered to the darkness, "Why do I feel as if the stars are watching?" And from the far hills, though she could not hear it, the Jadugar's voice drifted through the night wind, soft as a sigh, "Because they remember what you were, and they are waiting for you to remember too." The silver moon glowed faintly through the curtains, and the palace lay still, unaware that beneath its golden walls, destiny had begun to stir. The dawn came slow and silver, brushing the edges of Eloria's palace with threads of mist. But Queen Amara was already awake, long before the sun broke the horizon. Sleep had fled her the moment the wind whispered Arvion's name. She sat quietly at her dressing table, her reflection pale and thoughtful, her golden crown resting beside her. Caught the faint light, a symbol of power, and yet, at that moment, it felt like a burden made of iron. She reached up and gently touched her neck, where a small locket hung. It was shaped like a tear, smooth and shimmering, and inside it, a fragment of an old crystal the Jadugar had once given her. He had said it would glow when the world was ready to reveal its truth again, and last night it had glowed. When the first rays of light slipped across the window, Amara made her decision. Before the court awoke, before the guards lined the corridors, she wrapped herself in a simple cloak, soft gray and hooded, and slipped quietly through a hidden passage behind her chambers. Her heart pounded as she moved silently along the narrow path, the air cool and still. The passage opened behind the stables, where the morning fog rolled in thick and low. She found her old mare, Saloon, a gentle white horse she had raised before she was queen. "Quiet, my sweet one," she whispered, stroking the mare's mane. "We must ride where no one can see us." Salune neighed softly, as if understanding, and so, before the bells of dawn rang through the city, Queen Amara, hidden beneath a simple cloak, rode out of the palace gates and toward the forest of whispers. The forest loomed vast and ancient, its trees rising high like green cathedrals. The morning mist curled through the roots, carrying the scent of pine and moss. Sunlight trickled through the leaves in golden ribbons, painting the world in quiet magic. As Amara entered the forest, a strange feeling filled her chest, part fear, part longing. The air here felt alive, like something breathing softly beneath the surface of the earth. Every step her horse took was met with the whisper of unseen voices, old, gentle, and endless. "Who comes?" they murmured. "A queen, a seeker, or both?" Amara stopped her horse, glancing around. "I mean no harm," she said quietly. "I seek only the truth." The voices faded into a hush, and a soft breeze stirred the branches. She continued deeper until the sunlight faded and a faint blue glow began to appear between the trees. She followed it, drawn as though her soul recognized it. And then she saw him. The Jaduger, Arvion, stood beside an ancient stone arch, cloaked in silver and shadow. His hair, long and dark, shimmered faintly with strands of starlight. His eyes, deep as night, lifted as she approached. "You came," he said softly. "I had to," Amara whispered. "You said I am the key. Tell me what that means." Arvion smiled faintly, sadness flickering behind his calm. "The light within you, Amara, is older than your crown. It is the remnant of the first seers, those who could shape the world with their hearts. You carry that light still, though you buried it beneath duty and love." Amara's hands trembled slightly. "If that's true, why awaken it now?" Arvion stepped closer. "Because something stirs in the shadows, an ancient dark that once devoured worlds. The orb of Lumiere is its seal. If it breaks, all of Aloria will fade." She stared at him, disbelief warring with fear. "And what can I do?" "You must remember," he said simply, "not with your mind, with your spirit." He raised his hand, and the air shimmered. Around them, the forest began to hum. The ground glowed softly, and the ancient stones pulsed with faint blue light. "Close your eyes," Arvion whispered. "Listen." Amara obeyed, and then the world unfolded. She was no longer standing in the forest. She was floating. Around her stretched a sea of stars, endless and alive. Voices, like wind and song, filled her ears, whispering names she did not know but somehow remembered. She saw flashes, herself as a child, running barefoot through meadows that glowed with strange light, a flame cupped in her palm that did not burn, a sky split by silver lightning as she sang a name she could no longer recall. Then she saw him, Arvion, standing beside her younger self beneath an ancient tree. He was teaching her how to bend the light into shapes, to heal, to call the dawn with her voice. "You were the last seeker of Aloria," he said softly behind her. "You were meant to guard the orb, but when you chose the throne, you gave it up." Her breath trembled. "I never knew." "You did," he said, his voice gentle. "But love makes us forget what destiny demands." The vision began to fade, and the stars dissolved into darkness. When Amara opened her eyes, tears were on her cheeks. "You should have told me before." "I tried," Arvion said, "but your husband forbade the old ways. He feared magic, as all kings do." She hesitated, looking down. "He feared losing me." Arvion's voice softened. "And you feared losing yourself." A deep rumble echoed through the forest, low and distant, like thunder rolling underground. The trees trembled. Arvian's face turned grave. It's begun, he said. What has? The awakening. The seal around the orb weakens. The dark has sensed your touch. Amara's heart raced. Then we must return to the palace. No, Arvion said sharply. Not yet. You are not ready. If you go back now, the darkness will follow you. You must learn to control your light first. And how long will that take? He looked at her, eyes shadowed. Time flows differently for magic. A day here could be an hour outside, or a lifetime. She stared at him. You're asking me to disappear. I'm asking you to live, he said quietly. Truly live. Not as a queen bound by fear, but as the seeker you were born to be. The wind grew stronger, swirling leaves and whispers around them. Amara lifted her face to the sky and saw something that made her breath catch. A shadow, vast and shapeless, was moving across the horizon. Its edges flickered like black flame. What is that? She whispered. The Wraith of Ages, said Arvion, a remnant of the first darkness. It feeds on forgotten magic. It has felt you awaken. As the shadow crept closer, the trees began to bend away from it, their leaves blackening. Arvion stepped forward, raising his staff. A brilliant blue light shot from its tip, striking the air between them and the shadow. A shimmering barrier formed, humming with power. Go back, he commanded. The shadow hissed, a sound like 1,000 whispers at once, and then retreated, fading into the mist. Amara's knees weakened. If it follows me, it will, Arvion said softly. It always follows the light. He turned to her, his expression calm but sorrowful. You cannot fight it with fear, only with what you once knew, she swallowed. Then teach me, Arvion. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he nodded slowly. Very well, but understand this, Amara. Once you awaken what sleeps inside you, you will never again be only a queen. The forest grew silent. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Amara looked up, her eyes reflecting the faint glow of the stars through the canopy. Then let me be who I was meant to be. Arvion smiled faintly, a touch of pride and something else flickering in his eyes. Then come, seeker of light. The forest will show you the way. That night, as they walked deeper into the glowing heart of the forest, the moon rose full and white above them. The trees began to hum softly, and tiny lights, spirits of the old world, floated down like drifting petals. And though the Queen of Eloria had left her palace behind, her story was only beginning. For in the heart of the forest, under the watchful eyes of magic and memory, destiny had finally found her again. The forest was alive that night, not with danger, but with memory. 1,000 quiet echoes pulsing through the air like distant heartbeats. The moon hung low over the trees, silver and patient, watching as Queen Amara and Arvion, the Jadugar, walked side by side beneath the whispering canopy. The path before them glowed faintly, lined with moss that shimmered with a soft blue hue. Each step felt like crossing a threshold from the known world into something sacred and unseen. Where are we going? Amara asked softly, her breath forming pale clouds in the cool air. To the circle, Arvion replied. His voice was calm, yet something deep and ancient stirred behind it. It is where the first seekers learned the language of the light. It will remember you. The forest remembers me, she asked, almost smiling. The forest remembers everything, he said. It never forgets its children. They walked until the trees began to thin, opening into a wide clearing. The ground was covered in silver grass that glowed as though kissed by starlight. In the center of the clearing stood 12 stones, tall, smooth, and perfectly arranged in a circle. Each stone bore strange runes, etched deep and faintly glowing. The light pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. Amara stopped at the edge of the circle. This place feels alive. It is, Arvion said. The circle of light is older than any kingdom. It listens, it judges, and it teaches. He turned to her, his expression grave but gentle. Step inside, Amara, if you are truly ready. Her hands trembled slightly beneath her cloak. And if I'm not, then the circle will show you who you still are. She took a deep breath. The night air was cool and damp, filled with the scent of moss and starlight. Slowly, she stepped into the circle. The moment her foot crossed the boundary, the stones began to hum. A sound like the wind through glass filled the air, soft at first, then rising, surrounding her completely. Light blossomed from the ground, wrapping around her like a river of gold and silver threads. Amara gasped. The air shimmered, and then she saw them. Figures made of light appeared between the stones, tall, graceful, with eyes that glowed like the heart of stars. Their faces were serene, their voices like music carried by water. Child of the lost flame. The voices whispered together, "Why have you returned?" Amara's knees weakened. She felt the power of their presence. Not heavy, but vast, eternal. I seek to awaken what was lost," she said softly. To protect Eloria, the voices murmured among themselves, 1,000 echoes folding into one. Then silence. The nearest figure stepped forward. "Do you still remember the vow?" She blinked. The vow? The figure reached out a hand of light. The moment its fingers brushed her forehead, visions flooded her mind. Ancient, bright, unbroken. She stood once more. In another time, the sky was burning gold, the fields wide and endless. She was not a queen, not yet. She was younger, dressed in white and silver. Before her stood Arvion, holding the same staff, his expression proud and tender. "You are the last of the seekers, Amara," he said in the memory. "Swear upon the light that you will never let the flame fall into shadow." And she had placed her hand on the orb, brilliant and alive, and whispered, "I vow to guard the light, even if I must forget who I am." Then the light had consumed her, and the world shifted. The vision faded. She gasped and stumbled, the memory heavy on her soul. Arvian caught her gently. "Do you see now?" he whispered. "The vow bound your soul to the light. That's why you could not remember. The magic was locked away, to keep it safe until the world was ready again." Amara's voice trembled. "And now it's waking, because the world isn't ready." He nodded. "Because the shadow rises, and it knows your name." The forest seemed to grow colder at those words. The light around the stones began to pulse faster. The spirits of the circle turned their faces toward her once more. "Then you must remember more," they said. "You must call the flame by name." "I don't know how," she whispered. Arvion stepped behind her, placing his hands gently on her shoulders. His touch was steady, warm, grounding. "Close your eyes," he said softly. "Listen to the rhythm of the light. Don't force it. Feel it." Amara obeyed. She breathed slowly, the sound of the forest fading, until all she could hear was her heartbeat. Steady, deep, echoing, and then she felt it, faint but real, a spark glowing in the center of her chest. It pulsed with every breath, warm and alive. She whispered without thinking, Lumiel. The name slipped out like a secret remembered in a dream. The circle erupted in light. The ground shook as the runes flared brilliant gold. The spirits of light bowed their heads, their voices rising in song, a harmony that filled the forest, the sky, and the stars beyond. Amara gasped as the warmth spread through her body, flowing to her fingertips, her skin glowing softly. She lifted her hands, and light poured from them like streams of dawn. She could feel the old magic again, gentle, infinite, and utterly alive. Arvion watched her, awe flickering in his eyes. You've done it, he whispered. You've awakened the flame of Lumiel. Amara turned to him, her eyes glowing faintly gold. It feels like coming home. The light around her softened, wrapping her in a calm warmth. For the first time since she could remember, she felt whole. But then, far in the distance, thunder rolled, deep and low, like a warning. Arvion's gaze shifted toward the horizon. The Wraith has felt your awakening. Amara's light dimmed slightly. Then we've no time to lose. Not yet, he said quietly. You have power now, but not control. The circle showed you who you were. Now you must learn who you are. She frowned softly. And if I fail? He smiled, faint but real. Then I'll remind you. They left the circle together as dawn began to rise, gold mist curling through the forest. Amara looked back once at the glowing stones and the fading spirits who watched her go. Their final whisper followed her through the trees. Guard the light seeker, for even stars must remember how to shine. When they reached the river that bordered the forest, Amara paused. The water shimmered silver blue, reflecting the sky. She knelt beside it, dipping her hands in, and the surface rippled with golden light spreading in soft waves. Arvion stood behind her, watching. The world remembers you, he said quietly. Every tree, every drop, every breeze. Even time bends to your heart. Amara looked up at him, the faintest smile on her lips. Then maybe. There's still hope. There is, Arvion said, but hope alone will not stop what's coming. He looked toward the east, where the first hints of sunlight touched the mountains. The darkness has already begun its hunt. That night, when the stars returned, Amara sat by the fire. She could feel the light within her now, steady, constant, humming softly like a lullaby in her chest. Arvion sat across from her, silent, thoughtful. The flames danced between them, painting his face in gold and shadow. Do you ever regret it? She asked softly. He looked up. Regret what? Choosing magic over peace, power over rest. He smiled faintly, his eyes distant. Magic was never power, Amara. It was memory. The world forgot that long ago. She gazed into the fire, her voice barely a whisper. Then maybe I'm ready to remember again. The fire crackled, sparks drifting upward like tiny stars. Arvion's eyes softened. Then the night will guide you, and as the forest sang around them, soft, eternal, the queen closed her eyes. Not in fear this time, but in peace. For though darkness stirred beyond the mountains, the light had awakened once more, and it was waiting to be seen. The castle stood quiet beneath the pale morning sky, its towers veiled in mist. For the first time in many months, Queen Amara crossed its gates not as a ruler burdened by fear, but as a soul touched by light. Yet even as she passed beneath the great archway, her heart trembled. The air within the castle walls felt different now, thicker somehow, heavier. The guards bowed deeply as she entered, their armor glinting faintly. Servants froze in the corridors, eyes wide with awe and relief, whispering her name as if she had returned from the dead. At the grand staircase, King Arion awaited her. His golden cloak hung loosely from his shoulders, and his once bright eyes were shadowed with sleeplessness. Amara, he breathed, stepping forward. His hand reached out, hesitant, disbelieving. Before she caught it gently, "I'm here," she said softly. Truly, for a moment, words fled him. Then he pulled her into his arms, holding her, like a man who feared she might vanish again. But Amara's gaze, resting over his shoulder, caught something strange. A faint shimmer along the edge of the throne room's great doors, like black smoke curling and fading. It was gone before she could breathe its name. That night, the castle celebrated her return. Torches burned in the courtyards. The great hall filled with laughter and music. The sound was warm, too warm, almost desperate, like joy forced to hide its own trembling. Amara sat beside the king, smiling as she must. Her crown shimmered in the golden light, but her eyes kept drifting toward the shadows that gathered in the farthest corners of the hall. Arvion, the Jadugar, stood near the wall, silent as ever, his staff faintly glowing blue beneath the folds of his robe. He did not eat or drink. He only watched. At one point, Arion leaned toward her and whispered, "He follows you like your shadow." Amara's lips curved faintly. "Or perhaps he watches the shadows for me." Arion said nothing more, but there was a flicker of unease in his gaze. When the feast ended, Amara slipped away from the music and light, climbing the spiral stair to her private chambers. The corridor was dim, lit only by the soft glow of moonlight through tall windows. At the end of the hall, she paused. Something was humming, faintly, too faintly for normal ears. But she could feel it, like a low vibration beneath her skin. Her hand brushed the stone wall, cold, and yet alive, pulsing softly like a heartbeat. She whispered, "Arvion?" But no answer came. The humming grew louder, then stopped. Silence swallowed the corridor. And then, from the corner of her vision, a shadow moved. It wasn't the shadow of a guard or candle. It was wrong. Too dark, too fluid, sliding across the wall as if it were made of smoke and thought. Amara's breath caught. "Who's there?" The shadow stopped and turned. For a heartbeat, two glowing red eyes looked back at her from the darkness, then vanished. When morning came, Amara sat in the garden. The light fell soft through the leaves, but she could not find peace. Arvion joined her quietly, as he often did. He did not ask permission. She had long since stopped giving it. "You saw it, didn't you?" he said softly. Amara looked up. "You knew." He nodded once. "The Wraith's presence is close now. It has crossed the veil. What you saw was its echo." Her fingers tightened around the edge of the bench. "How can it be here, within the castle?" "It is drawn to light," he said. "It feeds on fear, envy, and secrets. The moment you awakened the flame, it began to seek you." Amara's voice trembled. "Then it's because of me." Arvion shook his head. "No, it's because of the crown." She frowned. "The crown?" "The crown of Aloria was forged not by kings, but by seekers, those who once guarded the flame. Arvion said, his eyes distant. It carries part of the ancient magic within it. To the wraith, it is a beacon. That night, Amara removed the crown. She placed it on the table by her window, staring at it under the silver light of the moon. It gleamed softly, innocent and proud, yet now she could feel the pulse of old power inside it. She whispered, "If you are truly light, then protect me, protect him." Her words faded into the air, but far across the room, the shadow returned. It slid across the floor, silent as smoke, drawn toward the glinting crown. As it neared, the room grew colder, the air tightening around her chest. Amara stood frozen, watching as the shadow began to rise like mist. It formed the shape of a man, tall, faceless, cloaked in shifting black. Her heart pounded, but she did not cry out. The voice came, low, distant, and echoing from everywhere at once. "You carry what is mine." Amara took a step back. "Who are you?" "I am the first king's curse," the voice said, "and the last queen's price." The shadow's arm lifted. The crown shivered on the table. Amara felt her light stir, the golden warmth awakening within her chest. Her hands began to glow faintly. "Leave this place," she whispered. The wraith laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "You cannot command what was born from you." Before she could answer, the door burst open, and Arvion stepped in, his staff blazing with blue fire. "Be gone," he shouted, striking the staff to the ground. A flash of light filled the room, so bright it tore the shadow apart like smoke before a storm. When the glow faded, the wraith was gone, but the crown lay shattered. Amara fell to her knees, trembling. The golden fragments still pulsed faintly with inner light. Arvion knelt beside her, his expression grim. "It's begun sooner than I feared." She looked up at him, eyes wide. "What was it?" "The wraith's true form cannot cross yet." "That was only its echo," he said. "But now it knows where to find you, and it will come again." Amara reached for the crown, her voice breaking. "Then what hope do we have left?" Arvion's gaze softened. You are the hope, Amara. Not the crown, not the throne. You." The next morning, the kingdom awoke to silence. The king's advisors found the shattered crown and whispered of curses, of omens, of rebellion. Arion demanded answers, his voice echoing through the marble halls. But when he saw Amara, pale, trembling, her eyes full of tears and light, his anger fell to silence. She told him only part of the truth, that a shadow had entered her chamber, that Arvion had saved her life, that the crown was gone, but she remained. The court murmured. The king's face was unreadable. That night, he sat alone in the throne room, staring at the place where the crown had once rested. A cold wind whispered through the open window. In the distance, thunder rumbled again. In the quiet that followed, Amara sat by her window, looking out at the dark horizon. Arvion stood near the doorway, silent as always. "The wraith isn't gone, is it?" she asked. "No," he said. "It will wait and watch. It always does." "Then what do we do?" He stepped closer, the soft blue glow of his staff lighting her face. "We prepare," he said, "and when the next storm comes, we remember what the light feels like." Amara nodded slowly, closing her eyes. Outside, the first drops of rain began to fall, soft against the glass, like a heartbeat, steady and calm. And though the shadow lingered somewhere beyond the walls. For that one night, peace returned. The morning sun never rose that day. It lingered behind thick, brooding clouds, turning the kingdom of Eloria into a world painted in gray. The air felt heavy, like the sky itself was holding its breath. Birds that usually sang in the royal gardens stayed silent. Even the wind seemed afraid to move. From her chamber window, Queen Amara watched the horizon. The mountains far beyond the castle walls were swallowed by mist, an unnatural fog that shimmered faintly as if alive. Behind her, Arvion the Jadugar stood by the fire, his staff leaning against the wall, his hands tracing strange patterns in the air. Each movement left faint blue trails of light that faded after a heartbeat. "The storm gathers," he murmured. Amara turned to him. "The wraith?" He nodded once, eyes shadowed. "It waits at the border of this world. When the sun refuses to rise, it means the veil grows thin." Her heart tightened. Can it breach the castle? Arvion looked into the flames, his face unreadable. Not yet, but soon. Down below, the king's soldiers prepared for what none of them could name. The great gate of Eloria, tall and carved with runes of protection, had not been closed in 100 years. Until this morning, King Arion stood upon the balcony of the war tower, watching as guards secured the iron chains. "Has there been word from the villages?" he asked. A captain stepped forward, voice trembling. "No messenger has returned, Your Majesty. The roads are lost in the fog." Arion's jaw tightened. "Then no one leaves. No one enters. Keep the people inside the walls." He turned to face the horizon, and for a moment, he thought he saw something moving within the mist, something vast and dark, shifting like smoke upon the wind. That evening, Amara walked through the quiet halls of the castle, her bare feet soft against the marble. The torches along the walls flickered uneasily, their flames bending toward her as she passed. Her thoughts were heavy. She could still feel the faint ache of light within her chest, the remnant of the flame of Lumora that had once answered her in the forest. It pulsed when she grew afraid. It whispered when she closed her eyes. And now it was whispering again. "He comes." She froze, turning sharply. But no one was there. The hall stretched behind her, long and empty. The whisper faded, leaving only the echo of her heartbeat. She pressed a hand against her chest, breathing deeply. "Not fear," she whispered to herself. Light, but deep within, a small part of her knew. The whisper wasn't just warning her. It was calling to her. Later, as thunder began to roll in the distance, Arvion appeared in her chamber without sound. His cloak was damp from the mist, his eyes glowing faintly beneath the hood. "It begins," he said. Amara stood from her seat. "The wraith?" "Yes, it tests the gates. I can feel the wards trembling." The queen followed him through the halls, her gown sweeping across the cold stone. The thunder outside grew louder, deeper, as if something enormous was approaching the castle walls. When they reached the throne hall, the king was already there, surrounded by his captains. "The fog thickens by the minute," one said. "Our scouts see shapes, but the moment they look closer, the shapes vanish." Arion turned to Arvion. "Can your magic hold the walls?" "For a time," the Jadugar said. "But if the storm deepens, even the stones will forget their strength." The king frowned. "Then tell me how to fight what I cannot see." Arvion met his gaze. "You cannot fight it with steel, only with will, with faith, with light." Arion's expression darkened. "Faith does not stop a blade magician." Amara stepped forward. It can stop fear. The two men looked at her, the king's anger melting into worry, and Arvian's silence deepening into something like sorrow. That night, as lightning cracked across the sky, the castle trembled. From the northern wall came the first scream, then another, then silence. Amara ran to the window and gasped. Beyond the gates, the fog had taken shape. It wasn't just mist anymore. It had form, twisting, shifting, becoming a sea of shadows, each moving with its own hunger. Eyes glowed within them, hundreds of them, red and burning, like embers in a field of ash. And in the center of it all, rising taller than the castle towers, stood the Wraith, a being of pure darkness, crowned with horns of mist, its shape ever changing. The thunder came from its voice, and the lightning from its eyes. Arvion raised his staff, his voice steady despite the storm. To the gates! If they fall, all is lost. The queen and the Jadugar reached the walls as the storm hit in full. Rain poured down in sheets, drenching the stone, the wind howling like the cry of 1,000 lost souls. Soldiers clung to the battlements, their torches flickering wildly. Some dropped to their knees as whispers filled the air. Voices not of men, but of memories, fears, regrets. One by one, their courage began to crumble. Amara saw it, the way fear spread faster than the wind, and she felt the flame inside her begin to stir. Arvian, she said softly, if light is the only way, then let it be mine. He turned sharply. You would burn yourself? I would save them. Before he could answer, she stepped forward, lifting her hands to the sky. The rain bent around her, drawn to the warmth of the golden glow that began to bloom from her palms. The storm roared, but her voice rose louder. I am Amara of Aloria, she cried, daughter of dawn, bearer of the flame. Let light remember us. The glow burst from her hands, expanding outward in a wave of gold. For a moment, the storm hesitated. The wraith's massive shape recoiled as if struck. All across the walls, the soldiers gasped. The fear lifted from their hearts. Their trembling stilled. The shadows hissed and retreated, smoke dissolving into air. But the wraith laughed, a sound like thunder and sorrow intertwined. You shine, it whispered, its voice echoing through the rain. But every flame casts a shadow, and from the ground beneath her feet, a fissure of darkness split open. The light faltered. Amara cried out, falling to her knees as the cold seeped up through the stone, wrapping around her like chains. Arvion reached for her, chanting words of power, his staff blazing brighter than before. The fissure closed, but the queen lay pale, her light dimmed, her breath shallow. When the storm finally passed, dawn returned, but it was weak and colorless. The fog was gone. The wraith retreated. Yet something had changed within the castle. The walls still stood. The people still lived. But the queen's strength was fading. For 3 days, she slept without waking. The king stayed by her side, his hand never leaving hers. Arvion watched in silence, his mind racing through every spell and secret he had ever known. But the truth weighed on him like lead. The flame within her had burned too bright, too soon. When the third night came, he stood before Arian. She will not die, Arvian said quietly, but she cannot remain here. The king's eyes were hollow. What do you mean? The wraith has marked her now. It will come again, stronger, drawn to what remains of her light. If she stays within these walls, it will destroy the kingdom to reach her. Arion rose from his chair, fury trembling in his voice. Then I will build walls of fire. I will summon armies. I will... Arvion cut him off. You cannot fight the night with iron, king. Only she can. The king stared at him. And in that moment, something broke inside him. After a long silence, he said, Then you take her. You protect her. I will, Arvion said softly, until the flame is whole again. That dawn, before the kingdom stirred, a single carriage rolled out of the castle gates. Inside, Amara slept peacefully, her face calm, her hair shimmering faintly like sunlight under water. Beside her sat Arvion, his hand resting protectively upon the staff that pulsed with faint blue light. Behind them, the gates closed, the sound echoing through the valley like a sigh. The king watched from the balcony, his heart heavy, his crown bare. Far away, the horizon began to glow, not with the light of the sun, but with something deeper, a whisper carried through the air, soft as a promise. The light will return. And though the storm had ended, everyone in Eloria knew the true battle had only just begun. When Queen Amara finally opened her eyes, she saw stars, not the familiar constellations of Eloria, but ones that shimmered in strange, ever-shifting colors. They pulsed softly, as though the sky itself breathed. Her head rested on a bed of moss that glowed faintly under the moonlight. The air smelled of rain and jasmine, sweet but unfamiliar. The world was silent, except for the hum of life, distant rustles, whispers of leaves, and something that sounded like music carried by the wind. She sat up slowly, her gown damp with dew, her hair falling around her shoulders like threads of light. Where am I? She murmured. A voice answered from nearby. Far from Eloria, my queen. Amara turned quickly. There, kneeling beside a dying campfire, was Arvion, his cloak heavy with travel, his eyes shadowed with exhaustion. The blue crystal at the head of his staff flickered weakly, like a candle about to go out. She tried to stand, but her legs trembled. How long have I slept? 3 days, Arvion said softly. The flame within you dimmed, but it still burns. You're safe for now. She looked around. The forest was vast and old, filled with trees whose trunks shimmered faintly, as if dusted with starlight. Mist drifted low along the ground, glowing from within. This place, she whispered. It feels alive. It is, Arvion replied. You are in the forest of forgotten light, where magic that has lost its name comes to rest. As morning came, Amara gathered her strength. She walked with Arvion through the forest, guided by the soft luminescence that rose from the moss-covered earth. Every step seemed to awaken something unseen. Leaves shivered. Tiny motes of golden light lifted into the air and drifted around them like curious spirits. Why bring me here? She asked after a while. Arvion glanced at her, his expression unreadable. Because the flame that sleeps in you cannot heal within walls of stone. It must remember where it was born. She frowned. Born? I thought it was a gift. It was, he said, his voice quiet. But every gift has a story, and every story has a cost. Amara studied his face, searching for truth behind his words. But Arvion's gaze stayed fixed on the path ahead. He seemed older somehow, as though the storm had taken something from him too. Tell me, Arvion, she said softly, who are you truly? For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, almost to himself, he whispered, a man who once lost his light and has spent his life trying to find it again. They came upon a clearing by midday. In the center stood an enormous crystal tree, its trunk transparent, its roots spread wide like frozen rivers of glass. The sunlight passed through it, scattering rainbows across the ground. Amara's breath caught. It's beautiful. This is the heart of the forest, said Arvion. It listens to those who carry light and answers only in silence. He placed his staff gently against the tree. The crystal pulsed once, faintly, and then stilled. Amara touched the trunk with her hand. It was warm, alive. A faint vibration hummed beneath her palm, like a heartbeat. In that instant, memories not her own flickered through her mind. Visions of long ago, cities of gold under twin suns, rivers that sang, creatures of light walking beside humans, and at the center of it all, a tower of flame, endless and eternal. She gasped and pulled her hand back. What was that? The past, Arvion said quietly. The flame of Lumora does not belong to this age. It was the heart of the first dawn, the spark that gave life to all things. When darkness fell upon the old world, the flame was shattered, and only fragments remained. Amara's eyes widened. Then the light in me is one of those fragments, he finished. And the wraith, it was born from what was left behind, the shadow that fell when the flame first broke. A chill ran through her. So the wraith is part of me? Arvion hesitated. It is drawn to you because you are the opposite of what it is. But opposites are bound. One cannot exist without the other. Amara turned away, staring into the forest, where shafts of sunlight pierced the mist. If that's true, she whispered, then I carry its doom. And mine. That night, they built a small fire beside a river of glowing water that wound like a silver thread through the trees. The sound of it was soft and musical, soothing in its rhythm. Amara sat by the flames, her reflection rippling in the water, her thoughts distant. Arvion, she said at last, do you ever grow tired of secrets? The Jadugar looked at her, the firelight catching the sharp lines of his face. Secrets keep the world from tearing apart, and yet they tear the soul instead, she said quietly. You knew about the wraith long before it came, didn't you? He said nothing. His silence was answer enough. Amara sighed. Why didn't you tell me? Because, he said finally, I hoped it would never find you. I thought the flame might stay quiet. She looked up at him, her eyes reflecting the fire. And now? Now, Arvion said softly, I know it cannot. The world is shifting. Old powers are waking again. The wraith was only the beginning. The queen wrapped her arms around herself, staring at the flames. Then where do we go from here? North, he said, to the ruins of Valinor, where the last guardians of the flame fell. There, perhaps, you will find what you've lost. Amara tilted her head. And what have I lost? Your memory, Arvion said, his voice distant. Not of your past life, but of your soul's purpose. She laughed softly, not from amusement, but disbelief. And you expect me to find it in ruins? I expect you to find yourself, he said. As the night deepened, the forest began to glow brighter. The moss shimmered, the water shone like starlight, and small orbs of blue and gold drifted between the trees, like fireflies. Amara lay back on the soft ground, her gaze fixed on the shifting stars above. Arvion, she whispered sleepily, do you ever wonder if we are real or just echoes of something greater? He looked at her for a long time before answering, both. Echoes become real when someone listens. She smiled faintly, her eyes closing. Then listen to me, Jadugar, before I fade. He watched her fall asleep, the soft glow of the flame flickering faintly beneath her skin, like a heartbeat of gold. When her breathing deepened, he turned toward the forest. The lights among the trees were gathering, forming shapes, faint and translucent. He rose quietly, gripping his staff. From the shadows, a voice spoke, a whisper older than the world. You bring her here, Shadow Bearer, even after what you swore. Arvion's eyes hardened. She is the last. The flame must survive, or burn the world again, the voice hissed. The lights around him flickered angrily, forming into ghostly figures, outlines of people long dead, their faces carved from sorrow. Arvion lifted his staff, its crystal glowing bright. Stand down. She is not your enemy. She is all of our doom, one of the spirits wailed. When the flame awakens, darkness follows. Always. Arvion's voice was steady, but cold. Not this time. The ghosts hesitated, their light dimming, their forms beginning to fade. But as they vanished, one whispered something that made Arvion's blood run cold. She dreams of him too. He stood motionless for a long time after they were gone, staring at the sleeping queen. Her face was peaceful, serene, yet there was a faint shadow across her brow, a flicker of something unspoken. He knelt beside her, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. Don't dream of him, he whispered. Not yet. Morning came with mist and song. Strange birds, with feathers like liquid gold, fluttered above the river. The air was cool and clear, the kind that made the heart feel light. Amara woke slowly, the sunlight painting her face. She smiled. For the first time in what felt like forever, I dreamed, she said softly. Arvion stirred beside the fire. What did you see? She hesitated. A man made of light and shadow. His eyes were stars, but his touch was cold. He said he'd been waiting for me. Arvion's expression darkened. Did he give a name? She shook her head. No, only this. The storm was only the beginning. For a long time, neither spoke. The forest around them grew silent, as if listening. Then Arvion stood. We leave now, he said. The Wraith has found your dreams. As they packed their things, Amara looked one last time at the crystal tree in the distance. It gleamed faintly in the sunlight. Calm, eternal. Do you think it's watching us? She asked. Arvion paused, glancing back. Yes, he said, and praying we succeed. They began their journey north, the forest parting quietly before them. Behind them, the light of the forest dimmed, and far away, beyond mountains and shadow, a figure cloaked in smoke turned its gaze toward the dawn. The storm that had once shattered the gates of Aloria was only a whisper compared to what was coming next. And in the soft rhythm of the wind, faint as breath, the world seemed to murmur one name, Amara. The moon was a soft silver coin tonight, floating above the dark velvet sky. Its gentle light spilled through the castle's tall windows, resting like liquid silk on the marble floors. Queen Ilara sat by her balcony, her hands clasped around a crystal pendant that shimmered faintly, the last remnant of her mother's magic. The castle was quiet now, too quiet. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Somewhere beyond the walls, King Alden was preparing his knights, for word had spread that the Jadugar, the dark sorcerer who once cursed the land, had returned. Ilara closed her eyes and let the night breeze touch her cheeks. "He's out there," she whispered, not sure if she was speaking to herself or to the stars. And this time I feel the magic has changed. From the shadows, a figure emerged, an old woman wrapped in a cloak of twilight blue. Her eyes, ancient and gentle, glowed like the embers of forgotten stars. "Ilara," the woman said softly, her voice both a lullaby and a warning. "You carry something the Jadugar fears." The queen stood slowly. "And who are you to know what a monster fears?" The woman smiled faintly. "I am the keeper of forgotten spells. I remember what the world chooses to forget." Ilara's heart thudded. The forgotten spell, the one that sealed the realm between life and shadow. The woman nodded. "Long ago, when your mother still wore the crown, the Jadugar tried to steal the essence of the moon. Your mother stopped him, but at a great cost. The spell she used was never meant to be cast by one alone. She used her life to seal him away." Ilara's breath caught. "And now he's free because that spell has weakened." "Exactly," said the keeper. "But only one of royal blood and pure heart can renew it. And only one heart can guide the spell's path. Love's heart." Ilara's gaze turned toward the dark forest beyond the castle. "Alden," she whispered. The keeper stepped closer, her hand brushing Ilara's shoulder. "You must not fear him, child. The Jadugar feeds on fear. Instead, find the melody of the forgotten spell. It lies within your mother's pendant." Ilara looked down at the crystal in her hand. The faint light within it pulsed like a heartbeat. "Then teach me," she said. The keeper smiled. "I cannot teach what you already know, but I can show you where to listen." That night, while the kingdom slept, Ilara journeyed to the Moonlit Grove, a secret glade that shimmered even in the darkest hour. She remembered coming here as a child, chasing fireflies, while her mother hummed a lullaby. Now, as she stepped into the clearing, the air itself seemed alive with memory. The trees swayed gently, their leaves whispering her name. "Ilara." The voice was soft, familiar. It was her mother's. She froze. "Mother?" The pendant glowed brighter, and from its light, a shape began to form. A silhouette of her mother, Queen Seraphine, radiant and calm. "My little moonbeam," the spirit said. "You've grown strong. I feared you might never find your way here." Tears welled in Ilara's eyes. "I've missed you every day. The kingdom. Alden, the darkness is returning. I don't know if I can stop it." Her mother smiled tenderly. "You are my daughter. The strength you seek is already within you. The spell I left behind, the whisper of light, awakens only when spoken with love, not fear." "How will I know the words?" Seraphine's spirit extended a glowing hand, touching the pendant. "Listen to the rhythm of your heart. The words are written there." Ilara closed her eyes, and a warmth spread through her chest. The world seemed to fade, replaced by a melody, soft, ancient, and achingly beautiful. Words began to form, rising like petals from her lips. "Moon of silver, night of peace, bind the dark, let shadows cease. Heart of light, pure and true, the world awakens through love's hue." The pendant blazed with light, and for a moment, Ilara felt the pulse of the entire forest. The roots, the wind, the stars, all singing with her. Then, as suddenly as it began, the vision faded. Her mother's spirit smiled. "He will come for you soon. But remember, my daughter, magic born of love cannot be stolen, only given." With those words, Seraphine's light dissolved into the night, leaving Alara alone in the glowing grove. The next morning, the sky was heavy with storm clouds. The castle trembled as thunder rolled across the horizon. King Alden rode hard through the gates, his armor soaked and his eyes burning with determination. "Ilara," he shouted, dismounting his horse. "He's near. The Jadugar has been seen at the edge of the forest." Before Ilara could reply, the air shimmered. A shadow stretched across the courtyard, and from it, the Jadugar appeared. Tall, cloaked in black mist, his eyes like coals burning in a frozen face. "So," he hissed, voice echoing like wind through a tomb, "the child of Seraphine dares to stand before me." Alden drew his sword, its silver blade glowing faintly. "You will not harm her." The Jadugar laughed, a hollow, haunting sound. "You think your mortal steel can wound me, little king? I have returned from beyond the veil. Your weapons are dust to me." He raised his hand, and dark tendrils of magic lashed out, striking the ground. Stones cracked, trees bent backward. Ilara stepped forward, clutching her pendant. "Your power ends tonight, Jadugar." He turned his gaze toward her. "Ah, and what power do you hold, little queen? You think love can undo what death has sealed?" "Yes," she said firmly, though her voice trembled. "Because love is stronger than fear." The pendant glowed once more, flooding the air with soft silver light. The ground stilled, the thunder paused. The Jadugar snarled, raising his hands again, but his magic dissolved into mist against the radiance surrounding Alara. She began to speak the spell her mother had taught her, her voice steady and clear. "Moon of silver, night of peace, bind the dark, let shadows cease. Heart of light, pure and true, the world awakens through love's hue." As she spoke, Alden reached for her hand, and their fingers intertwined. The light grew so bright, it painted the clouds in gold. The Jadugar screamed as the light pierced through his cloak, unraveling his form into particles of shadow. "This isn't over," he roared. "You cannot destroy what you don't understand." With a final burst of silver brilliance, he vanished into the wind. Silence fell. The storm clouds began to part, and dawn's first rays spilled across the castle. Birds began to sing. The air smelled of rain and new beginnings. Alara turned to Alden, tears glistening in her eyes. "He's gone. For now." Alden cupped her face gently. "You did it, my love. You saved us." Alara smiled faintly. "No, we saved us." And for the first time in what felt like an eternity, peace settled over the kingdom of Alindra. But deep in the forest, where the last traces of shadow lingered, a whisper drifted through the leaves, soft and distant. "The light may win the day, but the night never sleeps forever." For many weeks, peace wrapped the kingdom of Alindra like a soft quilt. The storms had passed, the crops grew tall and gold under gentle sunlight, and laughter returned to the castle halls. Queen Alara and King Alden ruled with grace and kindness. They held feasts beneath candlelit chandeliers, where music filled the air like perfume. Children played in the courtyards, and the rivers, once darkened by the Jadugar's curse, sparkled again, full of dancing fish and golden reeds. But every piece, no matter how sweet, casts a shadow, and somewhere, in the deepest forest, beneath twisted roots and forgotten ruins, something was stirring. The night's uneasy whisper, Alara, woke one night to the sound of wind howling across the balcony. She rose quietly so as not to wake Alden. The moonlight fell through the curtains, in silver ribbons, and her pendant glowed faintly on the nightstand. As she reached for it, she felt it, a pulse, faint but sharp, like a heartbeat, beneath her fingers. Then came the whisper, soft, distant, almost tender. Ilara, her breath caught. The voice was not her mother's this time. It was colder, deeper, and carried an ache of sorrow. Ilara, why did you seal me away? Her fingers tightened around the pendant. Who's there? A shimmer appeared in the air before her, faint as mist. It took the shape of a man, a tall figure, cloaked in silver-gray light, not the dark shadow of the Jadugar. His eyes were hollow pools of starlight. I am not your enemy, the voice said. I am what was left behind when he was cast away, the echo of his soul. Alara's heart pounded. You're his shadow. Yes, it whispered, but not the part that hated, the part that remembered love. The air grew colder. The curtains fluttered as though the night itself leaned closer to listen. What do you want from me? Ilara asked. I want to rest, the spirit said, but as long as he lives in the darkness, beyond the veil, I am bound here. You have sealed him away, not destroyed him. Her pulse quickened. Then how do I end it? How do I free us all? The shadow's form flickered, its voice trembling like a dying flame. There is a deeper spell, one forgotten even by the keepers. It lies beneath the castle, in the chamber of echoes. Only a heart unbroken by fear can wield it. Find the mirror of moons. Before he does, the spirit began to fade. Wait, Ilara cried. Where do I begin? But only the whisper remained. Follow the voice of the tide beneath the stone. Then the room fell silent. The wind ceased. Only her heartbeat echoed in the still air. The chamber beneath, the castle at dawn. Ilara told Alden everything. He listened quietly, his brow furrowed. The mirror of moons, he murmured. I've heard of it in the old records. It's said to show not your reflection, but your true self. Ilara nodded. If the shadow spoke truth, it might be the only way to end this. I have to go. You mean we have to go, he corrected, taking her hand. You'll not face this alone. That afternoon, they descended into the catacombs beneath the castle, passages carved centuries ago by the first kings. The air was thick with the scent of earth and old stone. Torches flickered, their light brushing over faded murals that told forgotten stories of gods, moons, and ancient wars. Finally, they came to a circular door, etched with runes that shimmered faintly when Alara's pendant came close. This must be it, Alden said. Ilara stepped forward. The runes pulsed like a heartbeat. The pendant's glow brightened, and the stone door slowly creaked open. A rush of cool air swept over them, carrying the faint sound of water. They stepped inside. The chamber beyond was vast, a dome of black marble that reflected the torchlight like still water. In the center stood a pool, perfectly circular, and floating above it, a mirror, glowing faintly like a full moon trapped in midair. The mirror of moons, Ilara whispered. Its surface rippled, though no wind touched it, and from its depths came a faint whisper, soft, melodic, like a lullaby sung by unseen voices. Ilara of the light. The mirror spoke, its voice echoing across the chamber. Why do you seek what was never meant to be found? She stepped closer, her reflection wavering. Because the darkness has not ended. I must finish what my mother began. Your mother, the mirror murmured, paid the price of light. Are you prepared to pay the price of truth? Alara's throat tightened. If it means saving my people. Yes, the mirror shimmered. Then look within. She peered into the surface, and the world around her dissolved. She found herself standing in a vast white space. No walls, no ceiling, only endless light. Then a voice spoke, not from around her, but within her. Alara, the spell your mother cast drew upon two forces, love and sorrow. But every light leaves a shadow. To destroy the darkness, one must understand it. The light around her twisted, forming shapes. Her mother, smiling as she held baby Ilara. Then the Jadugar, kneeling before Queen Seraphine long ago, not as an enemy, but as an advisor. Ilara gasped. He once served her? Yes, said the voice. He was a great magician who loved your mother deeply. But love unreturned turned to envy, his heart broke, and his power twisted. Ilara's eyes widened. He loved her? He did. And when she refused his path, he vowed that if he could not have her heart, no one would feel its warmth again. He sought to steal the moon's essence, to make the world cold, forever. Tears welled in Ilara's eyes. Then his hatred was born of heartbreak. The voice softened. Even darkness begins with pain. Then the scene changed. Seraphine, casting the spell that sealed the Jadugar away, her face pale but calm. A tear rolled down her cheek. She didn't destroy him, Ilara whispered. She couldn't. She sealed him away because she pitied him. The voice sighed. And that pity left a door open, a wound unhealed. Now it is yours to close. How? By forgiveness, not of his acts, but of his pain. Only love freely given, even to the fallen, can end the cycle. The light dimmed. The voice faded. Go now, child of light. The shadow stirs once more. Ilara gasped as she came back to herself, stumbling backward from the mirror. Alden caught her. What happened? He asked. I saw the truth, she said softly. The Jadugar was once her friend. Maybe more. His darkness was born from love, twisted into loss. Alden's face hardened. Then he's even more dangerous than we thought. Ilara shook her head. No, he's broken, and I think he's calling for release. The return of the shadow. That night, as the moon reached its highest point, the castle shook, window shattered, the torches blew out. A voice, deep and echoing, filled the air. Ilara, you found the mirror. The Jadugar appeared once more in the great hall, his form darker than ever, but his eyes burning with sorrow instead of rage. You saw what I was, he said. You saw the truth. Ilara nodded. Yes, and I'm sorry for the pain you carried. But this must end. He stepped closer, his cloak of shadows trailing across the floor. You would pity me? After what I've done? Not pity, she whispered. Peace. The pendant glowed, its light merging with the moonlight, spilling through the broken roof. The Jadugar raised his hands. You cannot heal me. I am the wound itself. Ilara's voice trembled, but did not break. Then let my light fill the wound. She began to chant, not the spell of binding, but a new one. A song of release. Heart, once lost to endless night, find your way to morning light. Pain of shadow, sorrow deep, rest now, child, in gentle sleep. The light spread, wrapping around the Jadugar like a warm blanket. He screamed, not in agony, but in release. His form began to fade, his darkness dissolving into silver mist. As he vanished, his voice softened to a whisper. Thank you, Queen of Light. Then he was gone. The wind calmed, the torches relit. The castle, once trembling, stood still again. Ilara sank to her knees. Alden knelt beside her, his hand resting on hers. "It's over," she whispered. "Yes," he said quietly, "truly over." Outside, the moon shone brighter than ever, and somewhere beyond sight, in the quiet between stars, a soul once broken found peace at last. That night, Ilara stood on the balcony once more, the pendant resting warm against her heart. She whispered to the stars, "Mother, it's done. The darkness is free, and so am I." A soft wind brushed her hair, carrying a faint echo of Seraphine's voice. "You've done well, my little moonbeam." The queen smiled, eyes closed. "Good night, mother." And with that, the kingdom of Alindra slept beneath the calmest moon it had ever known. Peace had returned to Alindra, or so everyone believed. The stars seemed brighter, the rivers flowed clear, even the wind carried a soft hum, like the sigh of a kingdom finally allowed to dream again. But magic has a way of lingering, like a candle that refuses to go out. Queen Ilara felt it first in her pendant. It would warm suddenly against her skin, even when no spell was near. Sometimes it pulsed faintly, as though it had learned to breathe. Each night she would touch it, half comforted, half afraid. It had been her mother's pendant, her guide, her strength, and now it seemed almost alive. King Alden noticed too. "You've been quiet lately," he said one evening as they stood on the balcony overlooking the gardens. "Since that night, I mean." Ilara smiled faintly. "I suppose I expected silence after all that. But the world doesn't feel quiet. It feels like it's listening." Alden wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "Perhaps it's grateful. You brought peace. Or disturbed something older," she murmured. He frowned. "You're thinking of the pendant." She nodded slowly. "It speaks in ways I can't yet understand." And that night, as the moon rose higher than it had in months, the pendant began to glow, not bright, but deep, like the heart of a living star. The whisper, beneath the light, Ilara woke from uneasy dreams to find her chamber bathed in silver. The moonlight had grown strange, thicker, as though she were underwater. The pendant shone softly on her chest. Ilara, her eyes flew open. The voice was not the Jadugar's, not her mother's either. It was younger, softer. "Who's there?" she whispered. The light shimmered, and before her appeared the image of a small child, hair like spun silver, eyes wide as moons. The child smiled. "Don't be afraid. I'm the heart of your pendant, the magic that sleeps inside." Ilara sat up slowly, wonder flickering in her eyes. You're alive?" "In a way," said the child. "I was created when the first queen of Alindra bound Moonlight to love. I've watched generations come and go, but your magic woke me." Ilara's heart fluttered. "Why now?" The child's expression grew serious. "Because something is changing. The Jadugar's power didn't vanish. It returned to the source it came from, and the source is waking." "The source?" "Yes," whispered the child. "The Moonstone core, the origin of all moon magic in your world. It sleeps beneath the crystal lake, deep under the earth. But the seal weakens." Ilara's pulse quickened. "If it breaks, then magic itself will run wild. Dreams and nightmares alike will come to life." The pendant's glow dimmed. "You must restore the core before the next full moon, or Alindra's peace will unravel." Ilara stared at the child, feeling a soft weight settle in her chest. "Then I'll go," she said quietly. "Tell me what to do." The child smiled faintly, then began to fade into the light. Follow the river that runs backward and listen for the moon's song. It will lead you there. Then the light blinked out. The room fell silent. Only Ilara's breathing filled the night. Journey to the river of echoes. By morning, Ilara had made her decision. She told Alden everything. He didn't argue. He only nodded once and said, "Then we go together." And so, before dawn, they left the castle in disguise. Two travelers wrapped in gray cloaks, guided only by the pendant's glow. The forest mist was thick and cool, curling around their boots as they walked. For 2 days, they followed the river that wound east through the valleys. But on the third day, the current began to shift. Alden was the first to notice. "Look," he said. The water was flowing backward, upstream, toward the mountains. The sight was strange and beautiful. The ripples glimmered like silver threads pulled by invisible hands. "This must be it," said Ilara softly, "the river of echoes." They followed it until the forest gave way to wide meadows of glowing blue flowers that only bloomed beneath moonlight. The air itself seemed to sing, soft, low, melodic hums that resonated deep in their bones. Alden shivered. "Is that the moon song?" Ilara nodded, eyes wide. "It's leading us." At the far end of the meadow, the river spilled into a great circular lake, surrounded by white stone cliffs. The water glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. Ilara stepped forward. The crystal lake, the descent, they found a hidden archway carved into the cliffs. Symbols ran along its frame, shining faintly in silver light. As Ilara's pendant neared them, they flared brighter, and a path opened, stone steps descending into the water. Alden took her hand. "Together?" "Always," she whispered. They stepped into the lake. The water didn't wet their clothes. It parted around them, shimmering as they walked down the glowing steps. Deeper and deeper they went, the world growing quieter until even their footsteps were swallowed by stillness. Then, at last, they emerged into a vast cavern. The ceiling shimmered with veins of crystal. In the center of the chamber floated a massive sphere of light, glowing silver blue, turning slowly like a planet suspended in space. The moonstone core, Ilara breathed. It was magnificent and terrifying. Around it, shards of crystal hung in midair, circling like moons around a star. Each shard pulsed with chaotic flashes of color. "The seal is breaking," said Alden quietly. Ilara stepped closer. "I can feel it. It's calling me." As she approached, the pendant began to hum, vibrating against her chest. A beam of light extended from it, connecting her heart to the core. "Ilara, wait," Alden called. "We don't know what it'll do," but it was too late. The light engulfed her, the heart of magic. For a moment, there was no sound, no sight, only a vast, endless whiteness. Then she stood inside the core. It wasn't a place of stone or air, but of light and memory. The air shimmered like liquid moonfire. Shapes drifted around her, shadows of people long gone, the first queens, ancient magicians, even the Jadagar himself, all fragments of magic born from this heart. A soft voice surrounded her. "Ilara of Elindra, you have come. Who are you?" she asked. "I am the Moonstone," said the voice, "the source of your world's dreams. You seek to mend what was torn." "Yes," she whispered. "The seal is breaking." "It breaks because the world has changed," the Moonstone replied. "Humans forgot the balance. They drew from magic, but no longer gave back. I can restore it," she said. "Tell me how." "To mend the bond," said the Moonstone, one must return a piece of living heart, a soul freely given, not taken. Ilara frowned. A soul? Yes, it whispered. The spell that sealed the Jadugar took part of my essence. His sorrow tainted it. Now, to purify the core, you must replace that essence with your own. Ilara froze. You mean I must give part of myself? The light pulsed gently. Your light, your love. Not your life, but the memory of who you are. You will live, but changed. She closed her eyes. Then so be it. The moonstone brightened. Are you certain? She smiled faintly. I am my mother's daughter. Elindra will never fall while I breathe. Then let the light flow. Ilara raised her hands. The pendant shone like a starburst, and light poured from her chest into the core. It filled the cracks, smoothing the chaos, softening the violent shimmer into calm radiance. For a moment, it was beautiful, peace itself taking form. Then a shadow stirred within the light. Ilara, her eyes widened. The voice, it was the Jadugar, but not as a monster. His image appeared, calm and human, eyes filled with sadness. You healed me, he said softly, and yet my pain remains bound to this place. You cannot purify magic without forgiving its history. She reached toward him. Then let me forgive it, truly. He took her hand. Then take what I once took, my knowledge, my sorrow, my love, and let it be yours. Their hands met, and a brilliant surge of light filled the core. The shadow dissolved, not into darkness, but into silver dust that merged with her. When it faded, she stood alone, but not empty. Her pendant glowed brighter than ever, alive with a gentle pulse, and she understood. Magic was never light or dark. It was memory, living, breathing, evolving. Return to the surface. When Ilara awoke, Alden was kneeling beside her, shaking her gently. Ilara, can you hear me? She opened her eyes and smiled weakly. It's done. The core above them shone steady, calm, no longer trembling. They walked back up the steps, hand in hand, as dawn broke across Elindra. The water shimmered gold, reflecting the first light of morning. When they emerged from the lake, the forest was quiet, not silent, but peaceful. Birds sang softly, as though greeting them. Alden brushed a strand of hair from her face. You did it. We did it, she thought. But she only smiled. As they rode back toward the castle, Ilara noticed the pendant was still pulsing, faintly, like a second heartbeat. But it no longer felt restless. It felt content, the dream that followed. That night, Ilara dreamt she stood once again beneath the moon. The child of light appeared before her, smiling. You did well, the child said. The balance has been restored. Ilara knelt. What will happen now? The world will sleep peacefully again. But remember, every peace must be renewed. When hearts forget gratitude, even light can grow cold. Ilara smiled. Then I'll remind them. The child's form shimmered. And when the moon calls again, you will know what to do. As the dream faded, Ilara whispered softly into the wind, Thank you. In the days that followed, Elindra flourished. Flowers bloomed early, the harvests grew rich, and the night skies shimmered with gentle auroras. The people called it the Queen's blessing. But only Ilara and Alden knew the truth. That peace was not given by gods or magic, but by hearts willing to heal what others had broken. And far above, the moon shone brighter than ever, its silver glow whispering softly to the world below. Sleep now, Elindra. The queen watches, and all is well. For many moons, Elindra basked in peace. The stars seemed to hum softly every night, and the moon shone with the kind of light that felt alive, tender, almost protective. Children dreamed gently, rivers ran clear, and even the great forests whispered stories instead of storms. Queen Ilara often wandered the gardens under that moonlight, her pendant glowing faintly with her heartbeat. She thought of the core, the Jadugar's sorrow, and the light that had bound them all together. Yet, in quiet hours, she felt something else, a pull, a song that wasn't the moon's, but something beyond it, the whisper of the stars. It began one evening as she stood on the castle's east tower, watching constellations drift above the horizon. Alden joined her, a warm cloak draped around his shoulders. "You're up early," he said, smiling. "Or late, depending how you look at it." Ilara smiled faintly. "I couldn't sleep. The stars are different tonight." He frowned. "Different how?" "Listen," she whispered. At first, there was only silence. Then, a soft vibration in the air, almost like a sigh carried by starlight. The sound wasn't of this world. It felt as though the night itself was speaking, too quietly for most to hear. Alden tilted his head. "It's like a hum." "Yes." Ilara's fingers brushed the pendant. It glowed, brighter now. "It happens when I look toward that constellation. See it? The arc of silver stars near the edge of the heavens?" "The veil," Alden said. "Sailors say it marks the end of our sky. Beyond it, there's only darkness." Ilara's voice softened. "Or something waiting to be found." The hum deepened. She felt warmth spreading through her palms, up her arms, into her chest. "Ilara?" Alden said, suddenly alert. "What's happening?" Her eyes widened. "I think it's calling me." The pendant flared, and for one heartbeat, the stars above seemed to tremble. The dream beyond the sky. That night, when Ilara finally drifted into sleep, she found herself not in the palace, but floating in a vast sea of light. Stars drifted past her like glowing blossoms. "Where am I?" she whispered. "You are at the edge," said a voice. Gentle, old, and infinite. "At the border between your world and the next." Ilara turned. Before her stood a woman made of starlight. Her eyes shimmered like distant galaxies, her gown a flowing river of constellations. "Who are you?" Ilara breathed. "I am Selûne, keeper of the celestial veil. I guard the bridge between worlds, between mortal dream and eternal light." Ilara bowed her head. "Why have you called me?" "Because," said Selûne, "the moonstone you healed was not the end. It was a beginning. You restored balance to your realm, but your light has awakened the veil itself. Something stirs beyond it." Ilara's heart fluttered. "Something dangerous?" Selûne smiled sadly. "Not yet, but all creation yearns to grow. When one world finds harmony, another feels the pull. The veil thins, and if it tears before it's ready, chaos could spill between the realms." Ilara stepped closer. "Then what must I do?" "You must cross the veil," said Selûne softly, "and mend the bridge before it opens on its own." Ilara hesitated. "Leave my world?" "Not forever. Time moves differently beyond the stars. A journey of moments. There may be months here, or no time at all." Ilara's pendant pulsed, as if agreeing. "Follow its call," Selûne said, her form beginning to dissolve into light. "When the moon is full again, the gate will open. Trust your heart and you will find the path. The stars shimmered, and Ilara awoke, preparing for the unknown. Alden listened in silence, as Ilara told him everything. When she finished, he didn't speak right away. He simply took her hand. You've already given so much to this world. Are you sure you must do this? Ilara met his eyes. If what Selune said is true, this isn't just about Elindra. The veil connects all magic, all dreams. If it breaks, even peace here could crumble. Alden's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Then I'll be with you. She smiled faintly. No, this journey isn't for two. Selune said it's between worlds. You must guard Elindra in my absence. He opened his mouth to protest, but the pendant's light flickered gently, as if confirming her words. He sighed. Then promise you'll return. I will, she whispered. You are my anchor, Alden. Wherever I go, I'll find my way back. That night, under the full moon, she stood in the center of the royal courtyard. The pendant glowed brighter than ever, silver and blue, alive with power. A circle of moonlight formed around her feet. The air shimmered, trembling like the surface of a lake. Alden stepped forward. Ilara, but before he could reach her, the light swelled, and she vanished, drawn upward in a pillar of silver flame. The crossing Ilara floated through a tunnel of stars. Time meant nothing here. The light shimmered, sometimes near, sometimes impossibly far. She felt weightless, ageless, part of everything. When the light faded, she stood upon a vast plain of silver mist. Above her stretched not a sky, but an ocean. Stars drifting through it like schools of glowing fish. A soft voice greeted her. You crossed the veil. It was Selune again, though now she was not alone. Figures of light, neither human nor spirit, stood behind her, each carrying a sphere that glowed like a heart. What is this place? Ilara asked. The liminal expanse, Selune said. Here lie the echoes of all worlds, their dreams, their beginnings, their endings. Ilara's pendant pulsed. And the bridge I must mend? Selune pointed to the horizon. There, a tear shimmered across the sky, an enormous rift, spilling motes of light that drifted down like snow. But some were not light at all. Dark shapes flickered within, twisting and writhing. The veil weakens, Selune said. Where there is imbalance, shadow enters. The same darkness that once touched your world seeks others. Ilara felt a pang of dread. How do I stop it? You must weave the rift closed, said Selune. Thread it with your magic, guided by your heart. But beware. Whatever lives inside that wound will see you as a threat. Ilara drew a deep breath. Then I'll begin. The shadow in the light. She walked toward the rift. The closer she came, the colder the air grew. The mist beneath her feet darkened, curling like smoke. She felt eyes watching from beyond the tear. Then something moved. Slowly, deliberately, a hand of darkness extended outward, dripping like ink. Ilara of Elindra. The voice was deep, hollow, echoing from within the rift. You mend what should remain open. You bind what longs to be free. Who are you? She demanded. I am the unmade dream, it whispered. The void between worlds, the silence that magic defies. You're the imbalance, she said quietly. The reflection of creation itself. Yes, it hissed. And you are the light that denies me. The shadow surged forward. Ilara raised her hands. Her pendant blazed, forming a shield of silver around her. The impact shook the ground, sending ripples through the mist. The voice laughed. a sound like broken glass. You think to close what is infinite? No, she said softly, her eyes calm. I think to heal it. She extended her hands toward the tear. Threads of light flowed from her fingers, weaving across the wound like silk strands. The darkness fought back, curling and snapping, but she held steady. Each thread she placed was a memory. Her love for Alden, her mother's song, the laughter of Alindra's children, the soft peace of her garden. Under moonlight, the light grew stronger, but the shadow spoke again, low and tempting. You could join me, Alara. You've touched sorrow. You've tasted eternity. Why return to a world so fragile? She closed her eyes, because fragility is what makes it beautiful. Her pendant pulsed, brighter than ever before. The light surged outward, flooding the rift. The shadow screamed and dissolved into dust. The veil sealed, leaving only a faint shimmer, like moonlight on water. The gift of the stars. Ilara fell to her knees, exhausted but peaceful. Selune appeared beside her, eyes full of quiet pride. You have done what few ever could, Selune said. You've mended not just the veil, but the balance between light and shadow. Ilara smiled faintly. I only followed what my heart told me. That, said Selune, is why the stars listen to you. She reached out and touched Ilara's pendant. It split into two soft rays of light, circling around her like fireflies before merging into her palms. What did you do? Ilara asked. I gave you the blessing of the celestial veil, Selune said. Your magic now holds both the dream and its shadow, the full truth of creation. You will see the world as it truly is, not as it appears. Ilara bowed her head, and the veil, Selune's smile softened. It will sleep again, until the next Queen of Light is called. The star shimmered brighter. Now it is time for you to return. Ilara looked up. Will I see you again? Selune's gaze glimmered like distant moons. Every time you look at the night sky, I am there. The world dissolved in light. Return to Alindra. Ilara awoke in the courtyard, kneeling within the fading circle of moonlight. Alden rushed forward, catching her as she swayed. Ilara, thank the stars. How long were you gone? She looked around, bewildered. The dawn sky was just beginning to lighten. An hour, maybe less. Alden shook his head. You've been gone 7 nights. Her eyes widened. Time had shifted again. He helped her to her feet. Are you all right? Ilara smiled softly. I'm more than all right. The veil is healed. The stars, they're singing again. That night, as they stood on the balcony, Alden noticed the sky shimmered with new constellations, patterns no one had ever seen before. They looked almost like threads, weaving across the heavens. Ilara, he murmured. They're beautiful. She leaned against him, resting her head on his shoulder. They're memories, she whispered. Each one a stitch in the veil, each one a promise. Of what? That no light is ever truly lost, she said. It only waits to be remembered. Above them, the moon burned bright, its light silver and soft, carrying the faintest echo of a celestial song. Epilogue. The night's secret later. That night, as Alindra slept, Ilara sat by her window, gazing up at the sky. The stars pulsed gently in rhythm with her pendant. For the first time, she understood their language. Each shimmer, each glimmer, was a heartbeat. Every star was a soul, dreaming. And as she closed her eyes, she felt herself floating among them, one small light among countless others, all connected by invisible threads of love and memory. The Queen of Alindra smiled in her sleep, and far above, Saloon whispered through the starlight, "Sleep, Queen of Light, you have mended the heavens themselves until the next dream awakens." The wind sighed softly through the towers, carrying that blessing through every window, every room, every heart, and so Elindra dreamed, peaceful, endless, whole. The morning after the celestial mending, the air in Elindra carried a strange new stillness. It wasn't the silence of emptiness. It was the silence of awe, as if the entire world was holding its breath. The sky shimmered with a faint golden mist, and dew sparkled on every leaf like liquid starlight. Birds sang softer, slower, their songs blending into the whisper of the wind that drifted through the kingdom. Queen Ilara awoke to that sound, her eyes fluttering open beneath the gentle veil of dawn. She felt different. Her body was the same, her heart the same, but her soul, it pulsed with a light that hummed beneath her skin. When she rose, her pendant responded, glowing faintly even in daylight. It was no longer a jewel. It was alive, and when she touched it, she heard voices, not words, but echoes, ancient and melodic, like the lullabies of forgotten gods. The song beneath the stone. She stood by her window, gazing across the kingdom she had saved. The gardens shimmered under sunlight, and the river wound through the valley like a silver ribbon. Alden entered quietly, his eyes filled with relief and warmth. "You've been staring at that pendant all morning," he said softly. "What is it telling you?" Ilara hesitated. "It's not telling me anything, it's remembering. Remembering." She nodded slowly. "I think it's showing me something, someone, from long ago." The light of the pendant swirled, and in that moment, the air between them began to shimmer. A vision unfolded before their eyes, a moving image made of light and mist. The vision of the first queen. They stood together, watching as the vision formed into a grand landscape, rolling silver hills beneath twin moons. Strange towers of glass and stone reached into the sky, and in the center stood a woman. She was radiant, tall, cloaked in silver light. Her hair flowed like moonbeams, her crown made of pure starlight. Around her, hundreds knelt, their heads bowed in reverence. "This," Ilara whispered, "this isn't Elindra." "No," Alden murmured. "It's older, far older." The woman in the vision raised her hands, and the moons above shimmered brighter. Her voice echoed through the room, not in sound, but in spirit. "I am Lyra, first Queen of Light, guardian of the celestial bridge. I bind the dream to the waking world. May no shadow pass unhealed. May no light fade unremembered." Ilara's pendant vibrated softly. The vision swirled again, now showing Lyra kneeling before a massive mirror of pure light. But the reflection was wrong. It moved differently, showing another woman in the same pose, her eyes darker, her aura shadowed. Lyra spoke again. "We are two halves of one soul. Where I shine, you must dream. When I fall, you must rise. Together, we are the balance of the veil." The vision faded, leaving behind only silence and the faint sound of Ilara's heartbeat. The forgotten mirror. Ilara sank into a nearby chair, her breath unsteady. She was real, the first Queen of Light. Alden knelt beside her, and she knew about the veil long before you did. Ilara nodded. But she wasn't alone. There was another, her reflection, a shadow self. Alden frowned. "Do you think that's what attacked you beyond the veil?" She touched the pendant again, feeling its pulse. No, that was something else. This was connected, but older, the very first balance between light and shadow. That evening, she descended into the royal library, a place few ever entered. The shelves were endless, the air thick with age and secrets. By candlelight, she began searching through the oldest scrolls. Hours passed. The candles burned low. Then, finally, she found it. A half-faded parchment written in an ancient tongue. She traced the symbols slowly, whispering the translation. When the first light rose, it divided itself to survive the dark. Thus were born Lyra and Nith, the twin queens of creation. Ilara's voice faltered. Lyra and Nith, light and shadow. A sudden chill filled the room. The candle flames flickered violently. Ilara, Alden said softly, we're not alone. The shadows return. A shape began to form in the far corner of the library. It wasn't solid. It wavered like smoke. Two eyes glowed faintly within it, silver and black at once. Ilara of Alindra. The voice was soft, familiar. You carry her light. Ilara stood slowly, heart pounding. Who are you? I am what she left behind, the shape whispered. Lyra's echo, Nithi's sorrow. The air shimmered, and the figure stepped into half-light. Neither woman, nor spirit, but something between. Her form flickered like a candle in the wind. Lyra sealed the veil. The figure continued, but she could not destroy her other half. When she vanished, her power scattered, waiting for another heart strong enough to bear both light and dark. Alden stepped forward. And that's Ilara. Yes, said the spirit, but now the bond must complete. The shadow that once obeyed Lyra sleeps no longer. Ilara felt a pulse of cold in her chest. The pendant flashed once, sharply. What must I do? Find the mirror of light, the spirit said, fading slowly. Before the shadow finds you. The room went dark, the path of reflection. The next morning, Ilara called her council and explained what she had learned. The ancient mirror of light was believed to have been lost centuries ago, hidden deep within the mountains of Marathan, a land shrouded in storm and mystery. Alden placed a hand on her shoulder. If this mirror exists, we'll find it together. She smiled faintly. I was hoping you'd say that. Their journey began at dawn. They rode past the forests, where the wind sang of peace, through valleys still glowing with traces of celestial dust. Each night, Ilara felt the pendant pulse, stronger as they drew nearer to the mountains. On the fourth night, they reached the edge of Marathan. The land was wild and cold. Clouds circled the peaks like dark crowns. Lightning flashed silently within them. This place feels alive, Alden murmured. Ilara nodded. The veil touches here. I can feel it. They camped beneath a cliff, the sound of thunder rolling endlessly above. As she drifted into sleep, Ilara dreamed again. The dream of two queens. She stood within a vast hall of mirrors. Each reflected not her face, but hundreds of others. Queens, warriors, sorcerers, all with the same eyes. And then, two figures stepped from the mirrors, one radiant as dawn, one dark as twilight. Lyra and Nith. Lyra's voice was soft as moonlight. You carry what we once shared, Ilara. Nith's tone was lower, heavier, like rain on stone. Light cannot exist without shadow, but the world forgets this truth. Ilara looked between them. Then teach me. Help me restore what was lost. Lyra smiled sadly. The mirror is not a tool, it is a test. When you face it, It will show not your beauty, but your truth. Nithi's eyes gleamed, and if you reject what you see, the balance will break. Ilara reached out, but the dream shattered into light. The mirror of light at dawn. She awoke with the answer. They climbed through the last stretch of mountains until they reached a cave whose entrance shone with pale silver veins. Inside, the air was still and cold. The walls shimmered faintly, glowing from within. And there, standing alone in the center, was the mirror of light. It was enormous, its frame carved from celestial stone, its surface smooth as water. Ilara approached slowly. This is it. Alden took her hand. Whatever you see, remember who you are. She nodded and stepped forward. The mirror rippled. At first, it showed her reflection. Then it began to change. The woman staring back wasn't quite her. Her eyes darker, her smile sadder. Ilara whispered, Nithi. The reflection spoke. Why do you fear me? I don't, Ilara said softly. But I know what you can do. Nithi tilted her head. You know what I can do, but not what I am. She reached toward the glass. Touch the mirror. Only then will you see. Ilara hesitated. Alden called out, Ilara, wait! But she pressed her hand to the surface. The shadow's heart. A shock ran through her. The world vanished. She stood in a field of darkness. No sound, no color, only pulse and memory. Before her stood Nitha. Not a reflection now, but real. Do you see it? Nithi said. This is the shadow's world, the place light forgets. Ilara looked around. It wasn't frightening. It was quiet, lonely, endless. You're not evil, Ilara whispered. You're the silence after the song. Nitha smiled faintly. And yet, they called me darkness, because they feared what they didn't understand. Nitha stepped closer. Then understand me. If you truly wish to heal the veil, you must carry both, the shimmer and the stillness. Ilara felt warmth spread through her chest. Then take your place within me, not as an enemy, but as truth. Nithu's eyes softened. As it was meant to be, the two forms merged, light and shadow entwining. For an instant, the world was both day and night. Then Ilara opened her eyes. She stood before the mirror again. The reflection was whole, balanced. The mirror dissolved into light and drifted upward like silver snow. The Queen of Twilight. When Alden reached her, she was radiant, her hair glimmering with both gold and silver strands, her eyes deep as dusk. Ilara, he whispered, awe in his voice. What happened? I met her, she said softly. The forgotten queen, the shadow of light. She wasn't a curse. She was the missing half of the story. Alden looked toward the empty space where the mirror had stood. So, what now? Ilara smiled, her pendant pulsing gently. Now, the world will no longer fear its own night. As they left the cave, the sky began to change. The storm clouds parted, revealing both sun and moon in the same sky, a perfect balance of day and night. And in that twilight glow, the people of Elindra looked up and saw their queen walking home, her silhouette outlined by the silver gold horizon. Epilogue. The song of balance that night. As she lay beside Alden, Ilara gazed out the window. Half the sky gleamed with sunlight's memory, the other half shimmered with stars, and both were beautiful. The pendant glowed once more, whispering the voice of Lyra and Neith together. Where there is shadow, let there be song. Where there is light, let there be rest. For peace is not in the brightness, but in the balance of the two. Alara closed her eyes and smiled. The world finally slept, not in light, not in dark, but in perfect harmony. The night air shimmered with quiet magic, soft and alive, as if the stars themselves leaned closer to listen. Within the towering marble halls of the Moonlit Palace, Queen Seraphina stood by the arched window, her reflection bathed in silver light. Her gown, woven from threads of moonlight, whispered softly against the cold floor as she breathed in the cool air, feeling the weight of her destiny pressing gently but firmly upon her shoulders. Beyond the window, the kingdom of Valera slept beneath a calm sky, but inside the queen's heart there was no calm. Her pulse throbbed with the rhythm of doubt, of longing, of something ancient that had begun to stir since her last meeting with the Jadugar, the sorcerer whose name people whispered with both fear and awe. It had been 3 moons since she last saw him, 3 moons since he disappeared into the veil of mist, with the promise that he would return when the choice must be made. Those words had haunted her since. Tonight, she knew the time had come. A sudden flicker of wind brushed her cheek. The candles trembled, the scent of rain and burning herbs filled the room, and the air grew heavy with unseen power. From the shadows, a voice spoke, smooth as velvet and deep as thunder. "You've been waiting, my queen." Seraphina turned, and there he stood, the Jadugar. His dark robes shimmered with faint starlight, his eyes glowing like twin embers in the dim room. He seemed unchanged, yet older, wiser, and somehow closer to the earth and sky at once. "I knew you would come," Seraphina whispered, her voice trembling with a mix of relief and fear. "You called for me," he said simply, stepping forward. "Even when your lips were silent, your heart's magic reached across the veil." "And I came." Her breath caught. She wanted to look away, but couldn't. "Why have you kept your distance all this time?" He smiled faintly, sadness shadowing his expression. "Because you needed to learn what it means to rule without me, to stand on your own light before you embrace the darkness that follows." "The darkness?" she repeated. He gestured toward the horizon, far away. Faint sparks of red and gold flickered like distant fireflies, but she knew better. Those were the flames of the king's army, marching back from the borderlands, where the war still burned. "The king fights for glory," the Jadugar said softly. "But glory cannot heal the land. Magic can." Seraphina turned away. "He is my husband. I cannot betray him." "And yet," the Jadugar murmured, his voice curling around her like a spell, "you already have." Her heart clenched. "What do you mean?" "You called for me in your dreams. You sought my counsel, my comfort. You whispered my name when the night grew too heavy to bear." Her cheeks flushed. "Stop." He took another step closer, his presence both terrifying and intoxicating. "You feel it too, don't you? The bond that even time and crown cannot break." She closed her eyes. This is wrong." "No," he said gently. "This is fate." For a moment, silence. Only the soft hiss of rain against the window. Seraphina's voice broke the stillness. "Why do you torment me with this?" "You know my duty." "Because," the Jadugar whispered, "you are the only one who can save the kingdom, but the path will demand a sacrifice, the heart of a queen or the blood of a king." She turned sharply, eyes wide. "What are you saying?" He walked to the center of the room, his hand rising. From his palm, a swirl of silver mist formed, growing into a vision. Two paths glowing in the air. One shone golden, radiant and warm. The other pulsed crimson, like a heartbeat. Two choices, he said. Save Valera through light, or through blood. The first path showed the king returning victorious, but behind his triumph lay a barren land. Rivers dried, trees withered, the people suffering. The second path showed the king's crown falling, his body fading into light, and in his place, green life blooming, spreading through every valley and village. Seraphina's throat tightened. You're asking me to choose between my husband and my kingdom. I'm not asking, he said softly. The world is. She looked away, her tears glistening like stars on her cheeks. How can you ask me to end the man I once loved? The Jadugar's expression softened, because love is not always gentle. Sometimes it must burn, so something new may grow. Silence again, thick, heavy, and endless. Finally, she whispered, and if I choose neither? His eyes darkened. Then the shadows will rise on their own. The ancient curse beneath the mountain will awaken. The kingdom will drown in storm and stone. She turned back to him, anger sparking. You claim to serve balance, yet all you bring is chaos and pain. He bowed his head. Sometimes balance begins in chaos. The queen walked past him, her footsteps echoing like soft thunder. Leave me. I must think. But before he could vanish, she spoke again. Tell me one thing, Jadugar. If I make this choice, if I take this burden, what happens to me? He looked at her long and hard, then whispered, You will become the legend your kingdom was always destined to remember, or the curse it was always doomed to fear. And with that, he was gone. Hours passed. The queen did not sleep. In the deepest part of the night, she left the palace and walked to the old temple that stood atop the Hill of Whispers. The moon hung low, her light painting the stone steps in ghostly silver. Inside the temple, the air hummed with memory. The old gods were silent, but their eyes, carved in ancient stone, seemed to watch her every move. She knelt before the altar and whispered, If any of you can hear me, show me the truth. What must I do? The flame on the altar flickered once, then grew higher, changing color from gold to blue. In the light, she saw two shadows forming, one of the king, proud and strong, the other, the Jadugar, calm and sorrowful. Her heart broke anew. The flame whispered in her mind, Every queen must choose what she loves most, the crown, the heart, or the land. Only one can be saved. She wept silently, pressing her hand to her chest. Then let it be the land, she whispered. For without it, love and crown are nothing. The flame roared higher, bright as dawn. Outside, the first cry of thunder echoed across the sky. And far away, in the depths of the forest, the Jadugar lifted his head, feeling the magic shift. The choice had been made. Forgive me, Seraphina whispered to the wind. Forgive me, my king. And as the rain began to fall once more, the moon dimmed behind clouds. Valera trembled, for the queen's choice had set destiny into motion. That night, as lightning carved the heavens, the Jadugar stood upon the cliffs overlooking the sea, his robes whipped in the storm wind, his eyes glowing with sorrow and pride. She has chosen, he murmured. It was enormous, its frame carved from celestial stone, its surface smooth as water. Ilara approached slowly. This is it. Alden took her hand. Whatever you see, remember who you are. She nodded, and stepped forward. The mirror rippled. At first, it showed her reflection. Then it began to change. The woman staring back wasn't quite her. Her eyes darker, her smile sadder. Ilara whispered, "Neither." The reflection spoke. "Why do you fear me?" "I don't," Ilara said softly, "but I know what you can do." Naithi tilted her head. "You know what I can do, but not what I am." She reached toward the glass. "Touch the mirror. Only then will you see." Ilara hesitated. Alden called out, "Ilara, wait!" But she pressed her hand to the surface. The shadow's heart, a shock, ran through her. The world vanished. She stood in a field of darkness. No sound, no color, only pulse and memory. Before her stood Nitha, not a reflection now, but real. "Do you see it?" Naithi said. "This is the shadow's world. The place light forgets." Ilara looked around. It wasn't frightening. It was quiet, lonely, endless. "You're not evil," Ilara whispered. "You're the silence after the song." Nitha smiled faintly. "And yet, they called me darkness, because they feared what they didn't understand." Nitha stepped closer. "Then understand me. If you truly wish to heal the veil, you must carry both, the shimmer and the stillness." Ilara felt warmth spread through her chest. "Then take your place within me, not as an enemy, but as truth." Nathi's eyes softened, as it was meant to be. The two forms merged, light and shadow entwining. For an instant, the world was both day and night. Then Ilara opened her eyes. She stood before the mirror again. The reflection was whole, balanced. The mirror dissolved into light and drifted upward like silver snow, the queen of twilight. When Alden reached her, she was radiant, her hair glimmering with both gold and silver strands, her eyes deep as dusk. "Ilara," he whispered, awe in his voice. "What happened?" "I met her," she said softly. "The forgotten queen, the shadow of light. She wasn't a curse. She was the missing half of the story." Alden looked toward the empty space where the mirror had stood. "So, what now?" Ilara smiled, her pendant pulsing gently. "Now, the world will no longer fear its own night." As they left the cave, the sky began to change. The storm clouds parted, revealing both sun and moon in the same sky, a perfect balance of day and night. And in that twilight glow, the people of Elindra looked up and saw their queen walking home, her silhouette outlined by the silver gold horizon. Epilogue. The song of balance that night. As she lay beside Alden, Ilara gazed out the window. Half the sky gleamed with sunlight's memory, the other half shimmered with stars. And both were beautiful. The pendant glowed once more, whispering the voice of Lyra and Naithi together. Where there is shadow, let there be song. Where there is light, let there be rest. For peace is not in the brightness, but in the balance of the two. Ilara closed her eyes and smiled. The world finally slept, not in light, not in dark, but in perfect harmony. The night air shimmered with quiet magic, soft and alive, as if the stars themselves leaned closer to listen. Within the towering marble halls of the Moonlit Palace, Queen Seraphina stood by the arched window, her reflection bathed in silver light. Her gown, woven from threads of moonlight, whispered softly against the cold floor as she breathed in the cool air, feeling the weight of her destiny pressing gently but firmly upon her shoulders. Beyond the window, the kingdom of Valera slept beneath a calm sky, but inside the queen's heart There was no calm. Her pulse throbbed with the rhythm of doubt, of longing, of something ancient that had begun to stir since her last meeting with the Jadugar, the sorcerer whose name people whispered with both fear and awe. It had been 3 moons since she last saw him, 3 moons since he disappeared into the veil of mist, with the promise that he would return when the choice must be made. Those words had haunted her since. Tonight, she knew the time had come. A sudden flicker of wind brushed her cheek. The candles trembled, the scent of rain and burning herbs filled the room, and the air grew heavy with unseen power. From the shadows, a voice spoke, smooth as velvet and deep as thunder. "You've been waiting, my queen." Serafina turned, and there he stood. The Jadugar, his dark robes shimmered with faint starlight, his eyes glowing like twin embers in the dim room. He seemed unchanged, yet older, wiser, and somehow closer to the earth and sky at once. "I knew you would come," Serafina whispered, her voice trembling with a mix of relief and fear. "You called for me," he said simply, stepping forward. "Even when your lips were silent, your heart's magic reached across the veil. And I came." Her breath caught. She wanted to look away, but couldn't. "Why have you kept your distance all this time?" He smiled faintly, sadness shadowing his expression. "Because you needed to learn what it means to rule without me, to stand on your own light before you embrace the darkness that follows." "The darkness?" she repeated. He gestured toward the horizon, far away. Faint sparks of red and gold flickered like distant fireflies, but she knew better. Those were the flames of the king's army, marching back from the borderlands, where the war still burned. "The king fights for glory," the Jadugar said softly. "But glory cannot heal the land. Magic can." Serafina turned away. "He is my husband. I cannot betray him." "And yet," the Jadugar murmured, his voice curling around her like a spell, "you already have." Her heart clenched. "What do you mean? You called for me in your dreams. You sought my counsel, my comfort. You whispered my name when the night grew too heavy to bear." Her cheeks flushed. "Stop." He took another step closer, his presence both terrifying and intoxicating. "You feel it too, don't you? The bond that even time and crown cannot break?" She closed her eyes. This is wrong." "No," he said gently. "This is fate." For a moment, silence, only the soft hiss of rain against the window. Serafina's voice broke the stillness. "Why do you torment me with this? You know my duty." "Because," the Jadugar whispered, "you are the only one who can save the kingdom, but the path will demand a sacrifice, the heart of a queen or the blood of a king." She turned sharply, eyes wide. "What are you saying?" He walked to the center of the room, his hand rising. From his palm, a swirl of silver mist formed, growing into a vision. 2 paths glowing in the air. One shone golden, radiant, and warm. The other pulsed crimson, like a heartbeat. 2 choices, he said. Save Valera through light, or through blood. The first path showed the king returning, victorious. But behind his triumph lay a barren land, rivers dried, trees withered, the people suffering. The second path showed the king's crown falling, his body fading into light, and in his place, green life blooming, spreading through every valley and village. Serafina's throat tightened. "You're asking me to choose between my husband and my kingdom." "I'm not asking," he said softly. "The world is." She looked away, her tears glistening like stars on her cheeks. How can you ask me to end the man I once loved? The Jadugar's expression softened, because love is not always gentle. Sometimes it must burn, so something new may grow. Silence again, thick, heavy, and endless. Finally, she whispered, "And if I choose neither?" His eyes darkened. "Then the shadows will rise on their own. The ancient curse beneath the mountain will awaken. The kingdom will drown in storm and stone." She turned back to him, anger sparking. "You claim to serve balance, yet all you bring is chaos and pain." He bowed his head. "Sometimes balance begins in chaos." The queen walked past him, her footsteps echoing like soft thunder. "Leave me, I must think." But before he could vanish, she spoke again. "Tell me one thing, Jadugar. If I make this choice, if I take this burden, what happens to me?" He looked at her long and hard, then whispered, "You will become the legend your kingdom was always destined to remember, or the curse it was always doomed to fear." And with that, he was gone. Hours passed. The queen did not sleep. In the deepest part of the night, she left the palace and walked to the old temple that stood atop the Hill of Whispers. The moon hung low, her light painting the stone steps in ghostly silver. Inside the temple, the air hummed with memory. The old gods were silent, but their eyes, carved in ancient stone, seemed to watch her every move. She knelt before the altar and whispered, "If any of you can hear me, show me the truth. What must I do?" The flame on the altar flickered once, then grew higher, changing color from gold to blue. In the light, she saw two shadows forming, one of the king, proud and strong, the other, the Jadugar, calm and sorrowful. Her heart broke anew. The flame whispered in her mind, "Every queen must choose what she loves most, the crown, the heart, or the land. Only one can be saved." She wept silently, pressing her hand to her chest. "Then let it be the land," she whispered, "for without it, love and crown are nothing." The flame roared higher, bright as dawn. Outside, the first cry of thunder echoed across the sky, and far away, in the depths of the forest, the Jadugar lifted his head, feeling the magic shift. The choice had been made. "Forgive me," Seraphina whispered to the wind. "Forgive me, my king." And as the rain began to fall once more, the moon dimmed behind clouds, Valara trembled, for the queen's choice had set destiny into motion. That night, as lightning carved the heavens, the Jadugar stood upon the cliffs overlooking the sea, his robes whipped in the storm wind, his eyes glowing with sorrow and pride. "She has chosen," he murmured. From the darkness behind him, a faint voice replied, "Then the end begins." He closed his eyes. No, the beginning. And as the first light of dawn broke across the storm, the queen's tears turned into pearls of power, falling onto the earth, seeds of a future yet unseen. The land would live. But love would have to wait. The storm raged for 3 days and nights. Thunder rolled like the growl of ancient beasts, shaking the mountains of Valara to their roots. Rivers overflowed, and trees bent low beneath the fury of the wind. In the midst of it all, the moonlit palace stood tall, a shimmering island of light in a sea of darkness. But inside its walls, there was only silence. Queen Seraphina sat upon her throne, still as marble, her eyes fixed upon the open doors that led to the storm-soaked courtyard. Rain streaked across the polished floor like veins of silvers. Her gown clung to her, heavy with the dampness of the air. But she did not move. She could not. She had made her choice, and now the world had begun to answer. When the thunder had first broken the night, the royal guards had come rushing to her chamber, demanding guidance, pleading for orders. But the queen had only looked at them with eyes that no longer belonged to this world, calm, distant, and ancient. "Let the storm come," she had said, and they had obeyed, for her voice had carried a weight that silenced even the bravest. Now, on the morning of the fourth day, the air grew still again. The clouds began to thin. Sunlight, faint and uncertain, spilled through the cracks of the sky. The captain of the guard, Sir Kale, entered the throne room. His armor was dented, his hair wet from the storm. He knelt before her. "My queen, the people are frightened. The storm has taken villages near the river. The king's army has not returned. What shall we tell them?" Seraphina blinked slowly, her voice soft as the hush before dawn. "Tell them this is not an ending," she said. "It is the awakening." Sir Kale lifted his head, confusion shadowing his features. "My queen, forgive me, but the earth trembles. The sea has risen. What kind of awakening brings such ruin?" "The kind that births life from ashes," she whispered. "You cannot have light without loss, Kale. You cannot have peace without sacrifice." The knight hesitated, then bowed deeply. "As you command." When he was gone, Seraphina stood and walked toward the balcony. Her bare feet touched the cool marble, and she stepped into the light. The scent of rain still lingered, but beneath it, something new, the sweet, green fragrance of growth. She looked down upon the gardens below, where the storm had torn apart flowers and trees. New shoots had begun to emerge, glowing faintly with a silvery hue. The earth itself seemed alive, pulsing softly like a beating heart. And then she heard it, a whisper, soft, ancient. It came not from the wind, but from the soil, the leaves, the stones. "You have chosen well." Seraphina's breath caught. "Who speaks?" "We are the roots of the old world," the voice replied. "The breath of the first dawn. You have set us free." She fell to her knees, tears springing to her eyes. "Then the land will live again." "Yes," the voice said, "but every seed must feed upon something. You gave us your love, your king's light. The balance will hold. For now." Her hands trembled. "For now? Nothing is forever. Even magic fades when hearts grow silent." The voice dissolved into the wind. As dusk approached, the queen summoned her council. They gathered in the grand hall. Mages, generals, healers, and scholars, all whispering in awe of the strange new glow that spread across the land. "Fields that were barren now bloom overnight," said the high mage, his voice trembling. "But the rivers, they run red with silt and shimmer with light." "It is unnatural, my queen. It is the cost," Seraphina said simply. "The cost of what?" asked another. "The cost of renewal." The words fell like stones into water, rippling through the hall. No one dared question her further. But as the meeting ended, one figure lingered near the doorway, a woman cloaked in gray, her eyes shadowed beneath her hood. She stepped forward when all others had gone. "My queen," she said, her voice low. "Do you remember me?" Seraphina studied her face. A flicker of memory stirred. "You were once the royal healer, Lyra." Lyra nodded. "I served before the Jadogar came." The queen's expression darkened. "Speak your truth." Lyra lowered her hood, revealing streaks of silver in her dark hair. "You think your choice saved the kingdom, but I have seen the omens. The magic you called has no master. It feeds not only on your sacrifice, but on the souls of all who sleep beneath this land. Serafina froze. What are you saying? The Jadugar's spell has awakened the roots of life. Yes, but it has also stirred the roots of death. The balance is breaking. The queen's heart clenched. You lie. I wish I did, Lyra whispered. I can feel it in the earth. Something moves beneath us. Something older than kings or queens. The storm was not the end, my queen. It was the beginning. A chill ran through Serafina's veins. Leave me. But Lyra didn't move. When the moon turns crimson, the Jadugar will return. And when he does, you must decide again. Life or love, light or shadow. The land will not let you rest. Then she turned and vanished into the dark corridors, leaving behind only the faint scent of herbs and rain. That night, Serafina could not sleep. She wandered the palace halls, each step echoing softly against the marble. The moon had risen full and pale, washing everything in silver. She found herself drawn to the old library, where dust and secrets slept side by side. She lit a single candle and opened the ancient book the Jadugar had left her long ago, a book bound in black leather and starlight. Its pages whispered when she touched them, and words began to appear on their own, glowing faintly. The one who bears the crown of moonlight shall awaken the earth, and with it, the shadows beneath. Her heart ached. So it's true. She turned the page, her eyes widening as she read. When the soil breathes, the veil thins. The lost shall rise to walk again, neither living nor gone. Only the blood of the Maker can seal the gate once more. She dropped the book. The candle flickered violently. The blood of the Maker. Was it her or the Jadugar? The storm outside had faded into silence, but within, a storm far greater began to stir. At dawn, Serafina stood on the balcony once more. The kingdom glittered with morning dew, its rivers glimmering gold beneath the sun. To the people, it was a miracle, but the queen saw what they did not. The faint shimmer in the shadows, the slow twisting of vines that seemed to breathe, the whisper beneath the wind. It was not over. It was only sleeping. Behind her, footsteps approached. She didn't turn. She already knew who it was. The Jadugar's voice was quiet. You've seen it too. Yes, she whispered. You didn't tell me the cost. He sighed softly. Would you have chosen differently if I had? She looked back, her eyes shining with anger and grief. Yes. He stepped closer, his gaze sorrowful. No, you wouldn't have, because you love your people more than you fear your fate. Her hands trembled. Tell me the truth, Jadugar. Can it be undone? He shook his head. No spell can unmake what has already taken root, but it can be guided, contained. How? He hesitated, with the heart of the queen and the power of the sorcerer. United, not in duty, but in trust. She stared at him, tears forming. You mean love? He nodded. She turned away, her voice barely a whisper. Then may the gods forgive us both. The wind rose, swirling around them, carrying whispers of something vast and alive. The ground beneath the palace trembled faintly, as if the world itself was listening. The queen closed her eyes, feeling the Jadugar's presence behind her, the warmth of his magic mingling with her own. Together, they would face what they had unleashed. Together, they would try to tame the storm that still lingered beneath the soil. But deep beneath the earth, in caverns untouched by light, something ancient stirred. Eyes like molten gold opened slowly. A voice as old as time rumbled through the dark. The crown has awakened me. The ground quaked once, then fell silent, and far above, in the still dawn light, Queen Seraphina whispered, "This is not the end." The dawn came still and silver, like the pause between heartbeats. For the first time in weeks, the winds had fallen silent over Valera. The air was heavy, watchful, almost too calm, as if the land itself was holding its breath. Queen Seraphina stood alone at the edge of the balcony, her crown faintly glowing beneath the pale sun. Below her, the gardens shimmered with the strange, silvery light that now pulsed through the kingdom. The people called it the blessing of the queen, but Seraphina knew better. It was not a blessing, it was a warning. The roots of magic she had awakened were no longer whispering. They were humming, low, steady, alive. The Jadugar appeared behind her, silent as the morning mist. His eyes, once full of mischief and mystery, now reflected exhaustion. Yet beneath that weariness burned a deep, unshakable devotion. "You felt it," he said quietly. Seraphina nodded. "It's waking." He moved beside her, his cloak brushing against hers. "The thing beneath the earth, the voice we heard, it's older than our spells, older than any crown or kingdom." She turned to face him. "You knew this would happen." His silence was answer enough. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked, her voice breaking. "Why let me call it forth?" "Because," he said, eyes dark with pain, "the land was already dying. If we did nothing, Valera would have withered into dust within a century. You gave it life again, Seraphina, but that life came with memory, and memory calls to what was buried." The queen's hands trembled. "And what, exactly, did we awaken?" The Jadugar's eyes lifted toward the horizon, where faint red clouds rolled like silent fire, an ancient crown, not of gold or silver, but of roots and shadow. It was forged when the world was new, to hold the balance between creation and destruction. But when men began to build kingdoms and name themselves gods, it was sealed deep beneath the earth. "And now it stirs again," she whispered. He nodded. "The crown of shadows and light. It is neither good nor evil. But if it finds a bearer unworthy," Seraphina closed her eyes, "it will consume everything." That evening, as twilight bled across the sky, the earth began to tremble, softly at first, like a heartbeat under the soil, then louder, deeper, until the walls of the palace began to crack. The queen and Jadugar stood in the great hall as torches flickered wildly. Crystals embedded in the ceiling dimmed, then burst into shards of light. From the gardens below came a cry, half wind, half roar. The ground split, and from it rose a tree unlike any other, its trunk black as night, its leaves glowing with molten gold. The roots tore through marble and stone, coiling upward like serpents. At its base, a shadow took form, tall, crowned, ancient. "Who calls me from my slumber?" the voice thundered, echoing through every chamber, every heart. Seraphina stepped forward. "I am Queen Seraphina of Valera. I called the storm, and I freed the roots of life. I seek peace for my land." The figure tilted its head, and though its face was hidden, Seraphina felt its gaze pierce through her soul. "Peace?" it murmured, voice like a thousand echoes. "You speak of peace, yet you awaken power you do not understand." "I sought balance," she said, "and you have broken it." The shadow raised its hand, and the walls of the palace shuddered. Glass rained down, and lightning flashed in the skies. The people screamed in the distance. The Jadugar stepped between them, raising his staff. "Old one, she means no harm. She acted from love. Love? The being hissed. A poison sweet as honey. It was love that broke the world before. Its crown flared, a halo of fire and ash. Seraphina's voice trembled. Then what must I do to restore it? The shadow stilled. You cannot restore what was undone. You can only replace it. The Jadugar's eyes widened. Replace? You mean a new bearer? The being's crown pulsed brighter. Yes, the crown cannot exist unbound. One must wear it, body and soul, and once claimed, it cannot be removed. Seraphina's breath caught, and if no one claims it, then the land will devour itself. Rivers will run dry, roots will strangle the sky, life will feast upon life until nothing remains. The queen turned toward the Jadugar. Then it must be me. He grabbed her arm, eyes fierce. No, you've given enough. She smiled faintly. It was always meant to be me. Outside, thunder rolled again. The people of Valera gathered in the courtyards, watching the great black tree rise into the heavens. Its light illuminated the night like a false sun. Seraphina walked slowly toward it, her gown trailing across the broken stones. The Jadugar followed her, his magic glowing blue against the storm. Once you take the crown, he said, it will bind you. You'll become part of it. Half light, half shadow. You may never return. She looked up at him, tears glimmering like dew. Would you remember me? His voice broke. I could never forget you. She smiled sadly. Then that will be enough. They reached the base of the great tree. The air hummed, alive with magic. The crown of light and shadow hovered above the roots, turning slowly, its glow shifting between gold and black. The being spoke again, voice like thunder in her bones. Step forward, child of light, claim what you have called. Seraphina glanced once more at the Jadugar. He nodded, his eyes shining with both pride and sorrow. She stepped into the light. The crown descended slowly, its radiance enveloping her. Pain seared through her, fire and ice, love and despair, all at once. She gasped, clutching her chest as light poured from her eyes. The earth trembled. The sky split. The black tree glowed brighter and brighter until the world turned white. When the light faded, the storm was gone. The air was still. The palace stood quiet under a sky full of stars. The people looked around in awe. The strange glow that had haunted the land was gone, replaced by gentle moonlight. Flowers bloomed again, soft and pure. Rivers ran clear. The curse was lifted. But the queen was nowhere to be found. Only the Jadugar remained in the courtyard, his cloak torn, his staff dim. In his hands, he held something small, a single golden leaf, warm to the touch. He looked toward the sky, his voice breaking into the quiet. She kept her promise. From the heavens, a faint light shimmered among the stars, like a crown of silver resting upon the moon. Years passed. The kingdom flourished. Songs were sung of the queen who became light itself, and of the sorcerer who watched the stars each night, whispering to them, as if to someone he once knew. Sometimes, when the wind blew gently through the trees, it carried her voice, soft, distant, but full of peace. And the people would say, the Queen of Light watches still, but deep in the roots of the world, far beneath the soil, where no light reaches, a single whisper stirred once more. Balance is never still. When one crown rises, another begins to dream. The earth shivered faintly, the roots sighed, and the cycle of shadows began again.